Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome back to another episode of Transmissions with AJ. I'm here today with Mr. Steven Beattie, whose work I've followed for quite some time now. I've been sat on the fringes just observing quite profusely as I've been going on my own journey and connecting with the land and ley lines and organising events on ley lines, and month after month after month, my own knowledge and wisdom is becoming more profound, with our land and the power of the land and the lineages. And Stephen kind of come into my field right at the right time as I was on that prolific journey, and still am, as so as many other people. And I know I've got a lot of friends and a lot of followers who follow your work. And I thought it was really important I asked you about coming onto the podcast before all this Epstein stuff came out. So the timing of this couldn't come at a better time, given what everyone's seeing on the surface level and being being shown in more detail, compared to actually the actual real biblical sort of truths of our land and how it's all connected, and the timing of everything we're experiencing right now is absolutely on point. But I don't want to obviously hog the floor, Stephen. If you wouldn't mind, give people a bit of a sort of background about yourself, and kind of what led you to doing what you do now.
Well, the good thing is, AJ, I think a lot of the people, just by my Facebook and what I'm looking at on your stuff, we know we've got the same groups of people and the same influence. So so it won't be strange me talking about what I talk about. But basically, for me, this journey started, I'm 53 now, and the journey started when I was 10. As I said just before the live started there, I moved to Aberdeen. I discovered standing stones. Some of them were huge things that must have took hundreds of people to carry them. And I thought, what the heck is this? And I took an interest in them. And as I got older and get into alcohol and drugs and life, I kind of slipped away from it. And then I got into religion and became a minister when I was 27. And I then became vehemently opposed to Christianity, realizing that it was an absolute fraud. And I thought at the time that Judaism was the answer. So Jesus was a Jew, apparently. So I ended up in Messianic Judaism, and I trained there for 12 years, always having this urge to go and look at standing stones and mounds and burials and stuff like that, whereas the people who I was associating with in the religious, they didn't. It was a no-no. So I stayed away from it for many years, and then in 2011, 2012, I left the Messianic Jewish community, which I was training to be a rabbi in, and I came back from Glasgow, came back to Aberdeen, and suddenly all the memories, it was like a download, all the memories of the standing stones and things like that when I was a child, when I grew up in Aberdeenshire, came flooding back. And I recognised the stars I was looking at, the house of Cephas, Peter, Andromeda, Cassiopeia, immediately above me. And I was going through quite a trauma because my chocolate Labrador had died that day. And I went to the top of a place called Torrey Battery in Aberdeen, and it looks right onto the North Sea. And the sky was absolutely clear. And the sky spoke to me. And then I realised, wait a minute, all that I knew when I was little, reading on the stones, Cassiopeia, Andromeda, all these stories of the maiden and, the innocent child being taken down into Hades and the underworld. This was all in the stones, and yet this is the story in the Bible. So I started studying the stones again back in 2012. I realised then that it was all connected to a term or a phrase in the heavens known as Corona Borealis. And then in 2017, I was an anti-vaxxer, my children and other things. I was going through the anti-vax things on 2014, 2015. And I realized that the governments or whatever that was that controlled us were not legit. And there was something more going on. And then suddenly the stones, I discovered that the inscriptions with a serpent or a dragon, these were in relation to the system or the beast system that was controlling everything. And by the time 2017 came along, I'd already firmly established that all the royal houses had established every government in the world, and it was all being run by a New World Order or a World Health Organization. And then suddenly the Saturn Jupiter conjunction that happened in 2019. I was preparing for that. I knew that the Saturn Jupiter conjunction was coming, and there's a message on the stone on all the stones of Britain about the Saturn Jupiter conjunction, because when Saturn and Jupiter appear together, in the past, whether it's Greek, Egyptian, Roman, signifies illness, or what's called sidereation, where we get the word sidereal astrology. And the idea behind that is the planets, Saturn and Jupiter in particular, bring ailment or illness and bring man down to his lower nature. And this repeats it so often, and this is what's written on the stones. Most of the stones in Britain are 5,000 to 10,000 years old, some of them are. And the stones in Britain are older than anywhere in the world, because Britain is Atlantis. Britain is the ancient Atlantis. It is the center of the earth, and this is what the standing stones in the UK up and down the spine of Albion are actually telling us. So I ended up going back to studying the standing stones in the northeast, realized that the biblical narratives were actually on the stones, realized that the areas around the northeast were all biblical names. And I continued throughout the rest of the United Kingdom, realizing that it's a story all the way down the spine of Albion, which is the ley line. Most people will know about the spine of Albion ley line. It has 33 nodes, and I'm going to put that in my slide when I start.
Because it runs from the 33rd line runs from Christchurch in the south, doesn't it, up to through Aberdeenshire, doesn't it?
It doesn't run up Aberdeenshire. It's well, I suppose it is Aberdeenshire, because they've extended the sort of territory of Aberdeen. Aberdeen reaches down. It goes up by beyond Perth and up by Dunkeld and stuff like that. Which is, it actually. I'll try and show this in the maps, but there's actually two ley lines. There's the Meridian line, and then there's the Isle of Wight line that comes right up, and that's the spine of Albion, and it comes to the very north of Britain. But the two of them together are Jacob's ladder, if you can imagine. That's the two rungs. Well, rungs go all the way up the ladder. And the ancient people on these lands, the entire Europe, this is what, these books that I was wanting to mention, like your Combs Beaumont, L.A. Waddell, Michael Zari, and Gary Biltcliffe. I'll show images so that people, because I'm Scottish and a lot of people can't understand me, so I'll show the images of the books. But if you don't read these books, you won't come to a true sort of conclusion. I don't necessarily agree with every single author. We all get stuck in our own holes. We all get stuck in our own places and in our own mindsets. And each one of them that I've used are geniuses in their own rights. But what I've tried to do is I've tried to take all their information, your Combs Beaumont, L.A. Waddell, Michael Zarian, Barry Dunsford, Baron Blackett, Alan Wilson, Ross Broadstock of Britain's Hidden History, David Allen Ritchie. I'll put the images up there. These people have pieces. We all have pieces of it. I'm just fortunate that I've studied the standing stones and I've studied the biblical languages. And I know that Hebrew, because I'm fluent in Hebrew. Hebrew is Welsh, absolutely. It's Brythonic. The ancient Brythonic language is Hebrew in every way. So in fact, the Hebridean Isles, it's called the Hebrides because the land of the Hebrews, Hebrideus. Hebrides is Hebrew deus, God, deus, Hebrideus.
Well, it makes sense, because it's like, if you actually think about what we've been taught from the Bible since kids, like everything we're taught from at school onwards is literally BS. you know, or if it's maths and science, it's all linear or pseudoscience. Obviously, when you do, you know, they force you to sit down and do RE and stuff like that, and you know, they're banging on about Christianity, banging on about the Bible and passages of the Bible are only read to you by somebody who's either a minister or a padre or whatever it is like that, and you're supposed to take it on as Balaam, when actually, like, the whole Bible is based on the British Isles.
It's pure astrology of the British Isles. Not just the British Isles, it's the pure astrology of Europe. We have, if you won't remember, because I don't remember either, but you remember Checkpoint Charlie, you know, Berlin, right?
Yeah.
So everything's in language, everything's in the spells. You probably realize that everything's contained and hidden in the English language, which comes from Latin and Greek and Hebrew and Aramaic and Syrian and Assyrian languages. And these lands, if you read the works of Combs Beaumont and L.A. Waddell and Michael Zarian and all that, they tell you that these people lived in these lands. So the English language is very much a spell language. It's the language of angels. It's the language of angels. But I forgot what I was going to say there. But the entire narrative is written in heavens. For us, see, the thing is that they tell us everything. We know that, you know, that there's a thing called the revelation of method, and the people who do control us have to tell us. And the likes of the Epstein story, they're telling us what's actually happening in the heavens right now, because right now in the heavens we're actually just moved into Capricorn. So the sun has moved into Capricorn, and it moved in the 15th of January. Now, our calendars have been fixed since the Babylonian times, to be honest, but probably since the year 432, the calendars have been fixed. Your spring, your Easter, your winter, everything's been fixed on fixed signs. So we always have our Christmas celebrations in Capricorn, and we always have our celebrations of Easter in Aries. But the standing stones, and I'm going to show this, the standing stones are actually showing us in real time what happened 5,000 years ago. There was a plasma event 5,000 years ago, an electrical discharge, which happens because of us. We create the electrical discharge by our actions and behaviors, by our materialism and a lust for carnal, non-spiritual, you know, transient things that pass through our life that are meaningless yet. And that's what the standing stones are telling us. The standing stones and the Bible narrative is exactly the same. Every single Bible story is actually on stones all the way down the United Kingdom. And yeah, that's what I was talking about. Berlin, Checkpoint Charlie, CC 33.
33,
yeah. 33 parallel, but I'm not saying Berlin is a 33 parallel. What I'm saying is 33 is the magic number. Checkpoint Charlie 33, but Berlin is the bear line, and Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, the two bears up there. So Berlin is how far the line of the circle of the bear goes. So this is not just about Britain, because the North Celestial Pole, the two bears, Ursa Minor, and under the law, you're a minor. When you appear in court, you're a minor. But the pole star, everything circulates, and Jacob's ladder reaches up to the pole star, and that's Ursa Minor. But they're two bears in the heavens. And Berlin, the whole carry on with the Second World War, they couldn't go beyond Europe. They had to destroy our history in Europe. They had to destroy the landmarks, what people call the Tartarian buildings. They had to destroy all the German cities. They had to destroy all the French cities, so that we could not piece together that we were all the same people. Call us Gaels, Gauls, Goths, Scythians. We were all the same people, and we all had the same belief. And that belief was that the spine of Albion, from Portugal, the Gael, from the port of the Gael to Donegal, to the very top of Scotland and beyond to the Faroe Isles, was the ancient land of the Greeks, the Hittites, the Scythians, the Egyptians. These were the ancient lands where they all based their ideas of life around the tree of life, which was an upper canopy of the heavens and a lower canopy of the heavens. The upper canopy was known as the North Celestial Pole, and the South Celestial Pole was the underworld, and the in-between was the world that we lived on. And the whole of Europe, whether you were Gaels, Gauls, Goths, Scythians, Acadians, whatever, we all knew that we could balance the heavens energy by our behavior. And that's what our answer, the reason why they knew is because the standing stones throughout the British Isles, all the way up the spine of Albion, are the story of the man's ascension and the mankind's fall. And we know the story by Jesus Christ, who is Hercules, Ecclesia is church. Heracles is the called out one who sits at the very top of the spine of Albion, who is the raised Christ. Orion is the Christ crucified, and Hades, or the world of materialism, and where London is the Christ in his bedclothes, basically dead, the dead Christ there. And the ancient people of Europe understood that. I'll show this. I'm going to have to go to the video, because then I end up getting sidetracked, and I want to try and keep it. But the people of Europe, just as an introduction, the people of Europe understood that the spine of Albion and was a gateway for the soul, and it was a pilgrimage to the North Celestial Pole. And every single religion that we have has taken portions of that divine truth, or that esoteric knowledge of the tree of life and the tree of good and evil, the tree of the upper world, or the kingdom of the spirit, or the upper man, which was the mind of Christ, which is represented in the stories of Hercules, St. George, St. Andrew. And this is why we're seeing all the stuff with Andrew just now. The spine of Albion is called, it used to be called Ermine Street in ancient times. And it was also known as the Strait, and the spelling of that was Strait, the Strait. And that highway, which became the spine of Albion, went from London to the absolute north, to beyond, right to the very north. Yeah, and it was known as the Straight Way, or the Straight. It was also given a name later called Ermine Street. And people would make pilgrimage from all over Europe. All the united clans of Britain and Europe, or Atlantis, the dispersed Atlantis, would come to the spine of Albion, and they would make their way up Ermine Street, the Strait. Now that's very important, because the Bible's esoteric in every way. It's hidden, it's astrology in every way. So when the character Jesus, who is Orion, who is Hercules, who is you in the dead suit, and the dead man, the straw man, you give your Christian name when you go to court, and you give your assurance name, a liability. So, but your Christian name is what? You're the Christ. Yes, I am. But the stories are in the heavens. Did Jesus exist? I don't know. I believe that someday exist. We called him Arthur. We called him Isaac. We called him, yes, someday existed. When did he exist? I don't know. I believe it's Hercules. Hercules is this character. Hercules
Would you suggest, this is from my understanding of what I've been really kind of feeling into myself, so because I really believe we've got to feel into a lot of this ourselves and see how it resonates in the body, is like connecting to that Christ consciousness within. And I think for me, like when I did that quite a while ago, everything about 33 and all this kind of stuff became very apparent. Obviously 33 vertebrae in the spine, which your Christ oil travels from up into your pineal gland, which has 33 chambers, which then illuminates your heaven on earth, etc., etc. But
the word pineal, you know what that means?
Yeah, from the actual pine cone.
Yeah, but you know what the word pineal means?
Go on.
In Hebrew, it means the face of El, And in Genesis 33, we're given a clue. It says Jacob, and Jacob just represents the skull, the mind, right? The mind of God, the mind of man, ascended man, purified man. No need for the material, no need for ego or emotions that tie him back. But he's a free being, not even a man, just a man or a woman. That's and that represents the skull, Jacob. And in Genesis 33, Jacob goes to a place called Peniel. And it's translated in Hebrew. Remember, it's not Hebrew, it's Brythonic, it's Gaelic or Welsh. Ancient. It's actually Proto-Gaelic, which is ancient Gaelic and Brythonic. You have the lands of Brittany, you have the lands of southern France. We all spoke. I believe that Latin, probably the church took a hold of Latin and didn't allow anybody to use Latin. But I believe that all these nations had their own Brythonic, Gaelic, Brittany languages, but they could all understand each other. But the Latin language was the merchant language, which they traded. And Britain was known for its tin, copper. Remember, the biblical narrative, so we're told, happens just after the Bronze and into the Iron Age. So bronze and iron, Britain's full of bronze, Britain's full of iron. You won't find any bronze or iron in the Middle East. So your Joseph of Arimathea stories and all that, everybody knows that. Yeah, they were all here. They never left here. It never happened in the Middle East, if it happened at all. The stories of Jesus are actually the stories of Jason and the Argonauts. And the word Jason is just Jah, son, God's son. The thing is that the people who control us have taken the history, classical history, planted it elsewhere, which makes it difficult to understand. And they've made out the Greeks and the Athenians and the Colossians and all these different peoples were just Greeks. No, they were Greeks, Thracians, but they were nations, not just little provinces, which we have today in the Mediterranean, Greece. Northern Britain was Greece. This is why you need to really study the work of Combs, Beaumont and Eliot Waddell. Some sort of disaster happened maybe about 10,000 years ago and everybody migrated here. Then there was a great war in 650 BC and it was the War of Troy. So in 650 BC is the real date for the War of Troy. And you'll find that information from Alan Wilson, Baron Blackett, Ross Broadstock of Britain's Hidden History. Sadly, Alan Wilson's no longer with us, and neither is Baron Blackett, but their work's out there, and they tell you that BC 650 Troy collapsed, and immediately after Troy, a disaster happened. Now, William Combs Beaumont tells us that Helensburgh, Helen of Troy, Helensburgh in the Firth of Forth, in the Clyde, is ancient Troy, and everything above Helensburgh, Athens is Dumbarton. So Dumbarton Rock, the ancient Dumbarton. And the rock's very important in all these stuff to do with the because the rock is the battery, this black rock that runs right down the spine of Albion. And Dumbarton Rock is Athens. So what Combs Beaumont and Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett and others tell us is Troy wasn't in the Middle East, it was here, it was in the Clyde. And when Troy collapsed, there was what ended the War of Troy, which is the time of Hercules and all that. What ended the War of Troy was a massive disaster, which destroyed the west coast of Scotland, separated Ireland from mainland Scotland and England, created a bridge between them, or a sea between them, which became St. George's Sea. And you've got Cheddar Gorge at the bottom there of England. St. Cheddar is the same. Gorge. The word cheddar is a Brythonic word meaning a gorge, and the reason why it's George, because it used to lead into St. George's Sea, and St. George is Hercules, and Hercules is St. Andrew, and and this is why we're seeing Andrew in the news. But that's what I was saying. Britain had this narrow way. And I'll go back to that. I was talking about the character Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. That word, I am the way, it's Hadarech. Hadarech in Hebrew is actually Welsh for tree, for the way, the narrow way in Welsh. And on this rock I will build my assembly, literally ecclesia, where we get the word Hercules, Heraclesia. So at the very top you get Hercules. But that narrow way that he's talking about is a physical road that did exist in Britain called Ermine Street, and it was also called the Strait. And when he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, he's pointing, that strait is pointing right up Britain to central Scotland, to Dumbarton, to where the disaster struck. Right up there in the heavens, it hit Orion, Orion's belt, the 3 stars of Orion. Right? So you've got the 3 stars of Orion. So in 650 BC, according to these Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett and that, a comet or a meteor split in 2 and ended the war in central Scotland, which was Troy, ancient Troy. And the peoples were dispersed into what we understand as the Mediterranean today. In fact, there's some speculation whether the Mediterranean basin actually existed or whether it collapsed and the basin, the base of the sea or the land slipped under what we know as Turkey today, and the plates moved under, and then the waters from Britain came out of Britain from Atlantis, rushed down into the Mediterranean and filled what we call the Mediterranean basin today. Now, in my research, I know that I don't just study the standing stones, I study the waterways, I study the churches, the buildings, the domes. What I've discovered is these buildings are matching up with the patterns of the heavens, they're matching up with the standing stones, and our ancestors were actually bleeding the negative energy out of the atmosphere to prevent these calamities. So we'd actually worked out, so what we call Tartaria is actually just Taurus field, 2 Taurus fields together, and 2 Taurus fields, 2 Taurus fields create the Vesica Piscis, and that's what we get down Britain. So Tartaria is actually ancient knowledge that came from the Tree of Life in Britain, which extended out to the ends of the earth. And if you read stuff like the apostles, when after Jesus they fled to India and all that sort of stuff, when you read that sort of stuff, yes, they did, because what we understand is the Vedic religion is absolutely Aryan in every way. Every part of it was taken by what we would probably call the apostles or Jason and the Argonauts, the Aryan people of the British Isles after the disaster, and they mapped the entire world. And this book, Starstones and Scholars by Angus Collins, I think it's backwards, isn't it? Yeah, it is. But Starstones and Scholars tells us that Britain was the central point where Jason and these Argonauts, including Hercules, got on a ship called the Argus Navi, which is in the heavens, and went round the entire earth after the catastrophe, after the earth broke up and drifted apart, and America drifted over there, and New Zealand and Australia over there. It was one landmass, and the catastrophe came, sunk the entire west coast of Scotland, parts of Ireland, pushed Ireland away and separated it from the mainland of the British Isles, pushed Britain away, sunk Doggerland, which is very important, Doggerland. Why was it called Doggerland?
Someone asked a question about Doggerland and you just brought it up. So yeah, no, it's a good time to explain, mate.
Well, Doggerland is to do with the heavens again. There are 3 dogs in the heavens, or more, but there are 3 main dogs. And there is also in the Greek story a 3-headed dog that guards Hades. And Doggerland is where Sirius, the star Sirius, fell from the north. And that's on the standing stones too. And Sirius represents Isis, Softet.
Funny how it's funny how in the movie Truman Show, Sirius just a lamp just falls out of the sky, doesn't it, in front of his feet?
Yeah. What seems to happen is what I've worked out. I'm hoping this makes some sense. I need to go to my video so I can keep me on this, or we'll be here for hours. Should
we share my screen? You'll share your screen. You can show. You can put the video on. No problem. 2 seconds. There you go. So everyone should be seeing that they're ready to play. I'll maximize it. It hasn't got sound. You said, doesn't it?
No, it's no sound. I'm just going to speak. So
Okay, here you go then.
I'll not be able to see what's going on, but I'll just yap away. And if you've got any questions or anybody's got questions, stop me anytime, because it's a video. Just to prompt me, so but I can stop it, and I will be stopping it. So absolutely, if anybody's got any questions, if there's any questions in the chat,
of course,
fire them out. So what I've got here, the system isn't broken, it was made this way. I made this meme during the COVID era when we were all getting hammered and quarantined and Facebook bans, but as I went on, I've realized that the system itself, what we understand as life and what we understand as the authorities that rule over us, it isn't in any way broken. It's actually, it is the story in the heavens. We do have a choice. We can serve that lower reptilian mind, which is the Draco bloodlines, or we can or serve the ego, which represents Hercules and which represents all the heroes in the heavens, but especially Hercules and Orion. Or we can hope for better or aspire for better. And what was written on these isles was an anatomical lesson, a psychological lesson, a psychological lesson of how the brain works, because Britain was seen as the body of man, and the body of Adam, the body of the living being, but also contained within what we understand as the spine of Albion, and the shape of Britain was also the feminine, or what we would call the Sophia, the wisdom, or the feminine spirit, which has been deceived by emotion. And I talk about all the time on my Facebook posts about left brain and right brain, and really we are being tricked. We have to think logically and with reason. And Scotland represents the mind's right brain and left brain, and the standing stones throughout the British Isles carry this same right brain, left brain narrative all the way down, telling us that we have to think logically with an ascended mind, rather than with a carnal material mind that's tricked by emotion. And that's really what the standing stones are telling us. And even the stories which we are seeing in the news with the Epstein stuff is all related to our desire for materialism and desire for divinity, and getting the balance between the two, basically. And that's what the standing stones are telling us. And so it says here, and that narrative, the system is broken, it was made this way, and that narrative is written for the world and the heavens over the British Isles. The ancient folklore that we've seen in the heavens became the religious doctrine which we see today, and I'm hopefully show this as well. Now, I've got up here Made in Britain, and there's a reason for that, and I've got an image here of Persephone and a pomegranate. Now, the whole story of everything's a spell. Every single thing's a spell. And, let's make America great again. Let's make Britain great again. That's a story of Persephone, or the feminine, or wisdom, or Sophia. It's the story of our own wisdom being deceived by our own material, reptilian mind desires. That's written, that's been written in everything, the heavens, the news stories, written over the British Isles. But yet here we are, 2025, 5 years after we lost our own sovereignty, where our own crown was stolen, our own corona was taken, everybody was locked up and quarantined, and the sovereignty was taken away. And here we are again, 2025, 5 years later, we're still under the threat of digital ID. We have no sovereignty, we have no freedom, and this is because of our own doing, really, because the mind is made of three parts. The upper mind, which is the upper room, which Christ talks about, which is the ascended Christ, who spirals out of this world, who aspires to leave, not leave this world, but aspires to be everything in this world, that he can be or she can be, not being held back. And then you've got the middle mind who's stuck in the material sort of world, and then you've got the lower mind that's stuck in depravity. And we're living in that kind of world now. I don't mean to be negative, but everything is being fed into us as negative. Nothing's good, and we're at a point where nobody really knows who we are, what's a male, what's a female. You know, it's horrendous. Nobody knows their own mind. We're a fractured society. We're a fractured world, and they've done that with COVID. But COVID was all about the 2020. Was all about the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction, about illness, and it's about the ancestors seeing these alignments in the heavens. The Saturn Jupiter conjunction is a sickness in the mind if you allowed it, and so we're being programmed by this system, and most people are allowing themselves to be dragged down into that material reptilian, fight or flight fear part of the armadillo, where they're running with every single story. And this is why I put this image. The system isn't broken, it's made this way, and it is made this way, it's made this way. And I don't mean to say this either. Those who are in power are doing lots which are evil, but they're not actually stepping out of line. They're actually physically training us. It's about how to train your serpent energies, your lust, your desires, and they're pushing the buttons. We're the gods. We are the Elohim. I've said many times on my posts, and I've said many times to people that I talk to. In Genesis 1, you do not get the letters Yud He Vav He or Jehovah. You don't. It does in Genesis chapter 1. Jehovah Yud He Vav He does not exist. You get to chapter 2, verse 4, and that's the first appearance of Yud He Vav He. Now, Genesis 1 begins with Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim, and the word Elohim is the word used for God. So Genesis 2 is written by a different God. Genesis 3 is written by a different. Whoever wrote it, it's a different God. People don't realize that. But the very first words of the Bible, Bereshit bara Elohim, it says in the head. We translate it as in the beginning God created. Right, that's how we translate it. But Berosh, Be means in, Rosh, we should be familiar with the word Rosh, Roslyn, Ross, Roshire. Right, so the very first words of the Bible, Beroshit bara Elohim. The word bara means create. Elohim is plural, gods. So translated into English, it actually says Bereshit bara with the head, because the word Rosh means head, right? With the head created he, the Elohim. And we're the Elohim. So what the Bible in the first chapter is actually telling us is we're the creators. So we're creating this prison for ourselves by believing what we're creating.
Honestly, just one on that we just covered. Just going back to, like, obviously this, COVID and the start of it, and you said sort of the Saturn Jupiter conjunction equals sickness of the mind, right? Which many of us actually witnessed. Like I saw it from day one, amongst my family and friends. We all had our own experiences around it, but like it was you saying about training us for lust and desires and low level vibrations of emotions and stuff like that, fear especially. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I lost you for a minute.
So basically I witnessed like how collective consciousness is used against the people. So by putting fear into the collective consciousness, they then create that sickness of the mind. Yeah. So everyone's running around, quote unquote, getting COVID, but it was, people have already had colds and flus and this, that, and the other their whole life. It was no different. As we know, they just tailored it. They just tailored it with a loss of taste of smell, a loss of taste, right? Which was to do with obviously radiation poisoning and stuff like that.
Well, it's radiation.
But that's proof in itself. That it's a sickness of the mind, because it's about creating the hive mind hysteria around something that's just fear, which is just a mind weapon, and then everyone co-creates it, right, in that area or that space or whatever. Prime example. Do you remember when the old Matt Wanksock was on the TV and he was going like, "Oh, we've got this new B variant now. It's in India and it's managed to travel on a plane bypassing Europe and it's landed in Bolton." And I'm just like, what, to a heavily Asian area from, like, you know, lots of Indians and that live there, right? And then all of a sudden they're like targeting them, and it's just, do you know what I mean? It's clearly was always a sickness of the mind, and then all the psychological tests that came with it, bashing the pans of the NHS, following arrows, you know, wear a mask to go to the toilet, take it off when you get back, all that bullshit, right? You know, there's about a million things, but they were all literally tests of the hive mind, weren't they? And I said today on my Facebook, you know, the release of the Epstein stuff isn't actually that much different. It's to get people again to go around talking about other people, celebrities, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 on social media, all owned by the same people. And it's just like, and then a week or two, it'll be something else, and the people wouldn't have done anything about it.
Remember that all these socialites, whoever they are, whether it's royal family or whether it's movie stars or musicians, they're all called stars. They're all called stars, and there's a reason for that. Because, as I've been saying for years, I was aware of COVID coming in 2017, because what was happening in 2020 is Hercules had the North Celestial Pole. There are 7 asterisms, which all the religions are based on those 7 asterisms. Okay, and Hercules was pushed out the garden. The North Celestial Pole is the Garden of Eden, and Hercules, since that disaster happened way back 650 BC, Hercules was pushed out, but the poles were shifted, or there is no poles. Joshua James, I was on his talk the other night there, and he said it pretty well. You take a magnet, it's a magnet, it's got a magnetic north and south. You break that magnet, then you've got 2 different poles. But really, there are no poles. Everything is a magnetic realm that we're in, and the Earth is the battery that the sun and the moon charges this magnetic realm, I believe, and he said that the other day. But what actually happened is the magnetic pole flipped, and this is on the standing stones, because Balna Oren at Clava, up beside Culloden, and that's important, that name, Culloden. Odin, we believe that Odin was the Viking, Thor's father, but it's not. The original narrative to do with Odin is Odin was the one-eyed serpent, and Thor represents Ursa Major, Ursa Minor together with the hammer, creating the lightning bolt, which is the Zeus lightning bolt, striking the serpent and killing the serpent, taking over the kingdom from Odin. And that's the story of Hercules coming in. And in 2020, Hercules actually moved back in again. Now, if you look right next to Hercules, there's behind him, he misses it every time he spins round, and an anti-clockwise. The heavens turn round at the top, or the North Celestial Pole. They all go round in an anti-clockwise spiral, just like the Muslims go around the Kaaba stone in an anti-clockwise, just like Jews light the menorah in an anti-clockwise, and so on. They all represent the 7 stars that circle the pole of heaven. Now, for a long time, Hercules was knocked out, but he's came back in, and right behind him is a star constellation known as Corona Borealis. Now, in 2017, Boris Johnson became prime minister, and I thought, wait a minute, Corona Borealis, it's an anagram. Boris is real, and he was very, 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 and he still is very pro-Zion. Well, pro-Zion's actually a star in Canis Minor. It's pro-Zion. It's called pro-Zion, so, which moves over central Scotland. But Boris Johnson was pro-Zion, and I thought, wait a minute, Corona Borealis, Hercules has moved in. We've got Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, illness. So I was posting, if you go back and look, you'll find, if you type in Corona, you'll find, or crown. I was talking about your sovereign, your crown, because I was going through a legal battle at the time as well with the authorities, and I was realizing that I did have absolutely no power, no sovereignty, no authority at all if I went with the courts' way that they performed law. But if I stood on my own, then I had authority. So I'd already realized that the fact that Hercules had come back into the North Celestial Pole, and that the crown was just outside the North Celestial Pole, that something was coming. And I also knew that a Saturn and Jupiter conjunction was coming in 2019, 2020. I can't remember if it was 2019 or 2020. I think it was 2020. And with that, always in history, whether you're Greek, Egyptian, it always brings doom. It always brings, and when you go back in history, whether it's a Spanish flu or any of them, you'll find it's a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. So in 2017, I knew that we were going to be put in shackles somehow. I knew it was going to happen. And I knew that this is the story on the standing stones. So it was starting to come to traveling through Britain, because at that time, 2017 to 2019, during COVID, I was like, stuff that, you're not locking me up, I'm off, I'm out. And I just packed a rucksack and a tent, and I was up and down the spine of Albion at all these sites looking at the stones. And then that's when I realized, holy shit, something's coming. These stones are telling us the story of our own failure or our own fall because of the serpent energies. And yet here we are, being ruled by the Draco bloodlines, who came from the Hungarian Arpad Almos dynasty. They came through all the Plantagenetan, the Carolinian bloodlines, and they took over Britain. They rewrote our history, and here we are now. They're trying to claim everything, the throne. They're going to kill us. This is what I thought in 2019. I realised that, holy shit, this is a story on the stones. They're actually taking us down into the serpent realm. Because these are the Draco bloodlines. And that serpent realm is the world of materialism, the world, and the 11th of the 11th, every year we celebrate Armistice Day or Poppy Day or whatever, and the 11th of the 11th at that time of year, we're going into the winter season, and poppies are a drug that put you to sleep. And yet, 11/11, which is a very important date because who was it? William the Conqueror's son took over Scotland by marrying Matilda on the 11th of the 11th at 11 a.m. in the morning. So, but these are all codes to do with the heavens as well. But I realized back in 2017 that this narrative of the Corona Borealis and Boris is real and him being Procyon was all connected to Canis Major, Procyon in the heavens, to Orion's belt. And if we do go on in this video, you'll be able to see what I mean by that. Basically, Orion represents the material man. The narrative of Orion, he boasts that he can have anything and do anything, any woman, any animal, anything, he can kill anything. And he gets killed by a scorpion. And the scorpion's very important because the scorpion represents Judas Iscariot, the one who betrays the Christ. So Orion is the Christ because the scorpion, or Judas Iscariot, Scorpio, as we see in Leonardo da Vinci's work, Scorpio is the 8th from Christ. And so, Judas Iscariot is representing the same story of Orion. He kills Orion by a kiss, a scorpion kiss. But there's much more to the story of Scorpio and Libra as well, because these Scorpio and Libra used to be one sign, and then Libra was put in at a later date to represent balance, an understanding of balance for us in the heavens. So
it's interesting though, as you were explaining stuff then, I just had an idea to research Ermine. Because I recognize the name. There's actually a suburb in Lincoln called Ermine, and it's actually the roughest place in Lincoln. I mean, Lincoln's not one of the roughest places in the UK. It's actually a great place, but obviously everywhere has its rough patches, right? So there's a trend with this, isn't there? That all these biblical places or places attached to of significance are like been literally hammered and put into very low vibration, haven't they?
Yeah, they've all been devastating. Most of Glasgow and most of Ayrshire and Scotland is like, the house and estates are just absolute depravity. But these are the lands of ancient Phoenicia, and the heavens above it, you've got Horus above it, you've got Horus on standing stones. But these, this is what it's strange. It might be strange for some of your listeners, but there's some books that has to be read. The Combs Beaumont book and L.A. Waddell. We are not the word British, we are British. We are the covenant people. That's what the word Brit actually means. We are the covenant people. But the lands of Ireland are Upper Egypt. The lands of Wales and Cornwall and Devon are southern Egypt, and the Thames is the bottom of the Nile. And this is all provable by looking at the standing stones, by looking at the heavens immediately above. The Eridanus River, which is the great river of Hades, runs from Hadrian's Wall. In fact, the word Hades, Hadrian's, it's in it, in the word there. It represents the Milky Way, and it runs all the way down the Great Orme, River Orme, all the way down into the Thames, the Severn, and then into the this is the great river Eridanus. And around that great Eridanus, also known as the Nile Delta, the Upper Nile and the Lower Nile, was the ancient Egyptians. But the ancient Egyptians are the descendants of Enki, the Greek. We've been deceived that we think the Egyptians are all, and the Greeks and all that are somewhere in the Mediterranean or the Middle East, but they're not. These lands were the house of Cephas is Enki. It's also Adam in the heavens, and I'm going to show that as well. But created the earth, and from the earth the tree grew, and from Enki's descendants came the Tuath Danann, and from the Tuath Danann, the tribe of Dan, or the Council of Dan, the Dawn, the Council of Gods, the Watchers, came down to Ireland, and then they created the religion of Egypt, Enki.
Yeah.
And it became Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Now, what happened is there was a war between the north of Britain and the Egyptian, south of Britain and south in Ireland. It was a war, and they went to war with the people of the north, who were the Scythians, the Hyksos, or the Hyksos, or the Hittite people, or the Katai, or the Kathai, or the Kati, or the Kathi, Caithness people, the Katai, the Hittite people. And the Hittite people lost the war. It was a war that Ramesses II was involved in. And then he took a bride for himself from the Hittite Empire, from the northern kingdoms of Britain. And he united the whole of Britain as Egypt, Ramesses II. And somewhere in there we have the story of Moses, which is probably Akhenaten or somebody who realized the ancient history had been hidden by this new religion called Egypt in Ireland, who were originally the Tuath Danann. And the Tuath Danann are written on the standing stones all over the British Isles as well. They're carved as riders, tall riders and horses with snakes on their heads all over the north of Scotland. And the Tuath Danann actually come from the North Celestial Pole, known as the Old Mel or Old Meg. You've heard of the Celtic Old Meg, the Mother Maiden and all that. Well, the Old Meldrum is the mountain immediately under the North Celestial Pole, and the drum of heaven. It's known as the valley. The Bible talks about, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Well, the reason why it's called the shadow of death is because that valley, or that dell, that deep valley around the mountain, this black rock, it was where Draco spiraled round the pole star, and it was the valley of death, because Draco is the serpent energies taking you down into the underworld. And the whole Kattite, Hittite people were based around the North Celestial Pole, and they went down after a long war with Ireland, Upper Egypt, and they went down and surrendered their princess, Hapis, I can't remember her name, it's Mata. But if you type in Ramesses II's Hittite wife in any search engine, you'll find, and basically that's what we see on the standing stones, and that's the story of Adam and Eve. Because Adam represents he represents Cephas, and Cephas is the word Kepha. In Hebrew, the word Kepha means Peter. So Simon Peter's pearly gates. So the house of Cephas is Adam giving up his Hittite wife, or NKA giving up his Hittite wife, Mata Foru, or whatever her name is. I can't remember her name, but she becomes Ramesses' main wife. He's got many wives, but this is all happening in Northern Ireland, actually. You know, this is where we've been tricked. It's all happening in Northern Ireland. And the story of the maiden, and this is what Epstein's all about, because Epstein Island, if you go and look at Epstein Island, next to it, there's an island called Dog Island. And if you look at St. James's Island and Little St. James, was at Epstein Island, you'll see that it looks like two dogs with their heads decapitated. And if you look just over a little bit, you'll see that there's an island called Dog Island. So you've got St. James Island, which is the shape of a dog without its head. You've got Little St. James Island, which is a dog without its head. And then you've got a head called Dog Island. And Epstein, this is the three heads of the Hound of Hades. Hades had god of the underworld. There are three realms in in the heavens. There's the upper realm, which is the domain of Zeus. There's the domain of Poseidon, which is the ecliptic, or where the sun, the moon, the stars, and the waters, daily life passes through the world of Poseidon. This is how they've seen it. And then you have the lower world, which is the domain of materialism, corporate death, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it was guarded by three dogs, or a dog with three heads in the Greek understanding. And it was called, I can't remember what it's called now. Damn. Anyway, it's a three-headed dog, but it represents Canis Major, Canis Minor, and in Canis Minor you have Procyon, 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 right? And Epstein Island represents those three beasts, or the three-headed beasts, and below Epstein is the underworld. Now, when I go into my Google Pro Maps, I'll show that what we know is Alaska, Canada, Anchorage is the anchor and the rudder of a ship. Yep. And everything under Alaska, everything under Canada, and I'll show it, hopefully we get to that, is the shape of a ship. So the entire Earth is, we can work out what the Earth is and what the Earth isn't. Under the law, we're lost at sea. Why is that? Why we're lost at sea? Because when Jason and the Argonauts and Hercules recovered after this disaster back in the Bronze and Iron Age, they went round the world, mapping the world, planning, making planispheres of what the world's shape was, where the asterisms were. And this is what's not just in Britain, but they used Britain as the center of the entire Earth. And when you look at books like Angus Collins' book, Starstones and Scholars, he shows you that Alaska, Canada, Anchorage is called Anchorage because it's the back end of the Argus Navig's ship, which is the ship that Jason, the Argonauts and Hercules and all that supposedly travelled on. So the ship, wherever the ship is, that is land, wherever on the Earth, and it's projected over the entire Earth. And I will show it. Whatever's under the ship is lost at sea and to be destroyed in the next cataclysm. So we can actually work out the shape of the Earth. If I have the right people around me, we can actually work out whether I believe the Earth is flat and we're on a dome, but it's not. It's a moving consciousness. The Earth is a consciousness.
Yeah, that's what I believe for a long time. But when you look at the quote unquote traditional flat Earth model that a lot of people were screaming and shouting about in 2020, and I believe that became a big topic of conversation purely because it was like the opposite of what we've been taught at school, right? It's anti-government, it's opposite of school systems. Everyone went very much anti whatever we've been taught route, right?
Yeah.
So to talk objectively about two shapes, obviously the marble CGI NASA version, the sphere versus the traditional flat model with an ice ring around it and stuff like that. There's a lot of things that didn't sit right with me after a while, because as you learn more about yourself and your connection to the earth, the land, the heavens and all this kind of stuff, and you are the I am and the Christos within you, is that, like, you know, we are the creator, so we're at all times creating our reality through the heart space, heart being an anagram of earth. And and it's something that it's a growing organism that kind of constructs as you play the game. Just, I mean, you know, that's how I personally experience it now, and what really resonates. Hence why all our perspectives and views and you know, understandings and all of it is always slightly skewed with and different to the next person. And why people see things sort of differently to the next person.
I get into the flat earth. Sorry, AJ is saying that. I get into the flat earth. I think it was around about 214, and it was by chance. It was again because of the standing stones. I started to take an interest like 212, 213 in the standing stones again, and I was lining up. If you go back to my YouTube, I lost a couple of channels. I took a couple of YouTube channels away, and I had loads of videos on it. But if you go back to my earlier stuff on my YouTube now, I managed to save some of my videos, and I've got places like Moscow overlaid, how the stars are overlaid. I've got Paris, I've got New York, I've got Washington DC. These are old videos from all the way back. But when I was trying to use the globe to line stuff up, they were off by 20-30 miles, some of the alignments. So I was looking at standing stones, say for example, standing stones in the northeast of Scotland that I knew were aligned down in the Rhine Valley. So you're looking at Rhynie in Aberdeenshire, and the Rhine, which is top of the North Mountain, which is the North Celestial Pole area. You find that it's matching, everything's aligned south-southwest, so it's running down to the very south of France. And this is where you have the Mary Magdalene stuff as well with France. But when I was trying to line stuff up on the globe, it was off by 20-30 miles, and I'd end up having these ley lines aren't straight anyway, and energy lines aren't, you know, it's vibrations that move out and then expanded. You can't really measure where energy moves on a ley line because it's a frequency, a pattern. You know, it's pumping out. So, you know, depending who's in the area, it can, you know, widen or narrow down. But I realized that the Earth was not a globe because nothing was matching up. And then I started watching a couple of American guys who were talking about Nephilim and giants. And I thought, oh, well, this is interesting. And then it was the same journey I was on. And then they started talking about flat Earth, and I thought, this is ridiculous. How crazy is this? And then because they were talking about Bible stuff, and that's where my head was at the time, I was seeing that there were over 200 verses that were saying the Earth is flat. But it's based on water. What I came to the conclusion is that everything's water. Everything's water. You mentioned the word earth, the NKA is there, and the word earth, and the word hearth, which is very important because the middle realm, or what we call the ecliptic, you have the fornax, which is also in the brain, which is represented by a fire. So, and then you have the phoenix, which is next to it, which is also represented by a fire. And the word fire is the word hearth. Hearth also has EARTH, heart. You know, all this earth, hearth, fire. So you've got air, wind, fire, all these elements, which of course they incorporated into what we understand as Christianity, and, you know, gave them names, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and stuff like that. Which, So I'll put this map up now. Is there any other questions? You know, I didn't really stick to this video at all, but
just going back, just a quick one. Someone asked earlier, and it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, we're talking about the spine and the Albion and stuff like that, the standing stones. Before I moved to Lincoln, I used to live in Salisbury, and obviously you've got Stonehenge there. And I was never called to go to any of the solstices or anything. This didn't resonate with me for some reason. And you know, I could just from my own understandings, I was like, this place has been bastardized as in the land. That's what I'm feeling. You're surrounded by Salisbury Plain and the military garrison town.
Exactly.
Boscombe down, Portland down on the doorstep.
Underground chambers with all sorts of labs and stuff, experiments on people in those chambers, Boston down chambers there. The reason why it's all that word, see the word down, Downing Street, Downs, Bury. It's all to do with the dead.
Yeah.
It's all to do with the underworld. That's what, unfortunately, that's what southern England is. Although I'm going to show where everything is mapped on England, Ireland, and Wales as I go on here. I've got the spine of Albion actually on this video here coming up next. If you look at this map here, was there AJ? I don't want to miss anything. Was there anything that I never answered? Did I answer?
No. It makes a lot of sense, and I was just going to add to that. Like, I've spent a bit of time down there recently, just visiting my kids. But like every time I've been down there, it's obviously to do with the transformation within myself and how we alchemize energy and stuff. But like I literally felt awful when I was down there. Like everywhere I was walking the lands that I'd walked before, and I was just like, I just didn't feel good. I felt really purgy, and like
I've been to Glastonbury Tor, but I have had no desire to go to Stonehenge or anything like that. But there's new research just come out. You've probably seen it because it's flying about Facebook. But and it's a great research. I can't remember his name now, but he's telling you what I've been saying. The whole of Britain, the spine of Albion was a high ridge with 33 sacred points on it, and all the way around that ridge, which is a black rock. It's the same rock from the very top of Scotland that goes all the way down to Penzance. And then it goes beyond Penzance, away down the Rocky Mountains, the Argentinian coast, all the way down. It's the same black rock, and that's why Black Rock banking system is run by the same royal bloods. But that black rock, either side of that black rock was a waterway. So the spine of Albion runs down here, sort of there. Can you see this video? Yeah. And everything's moved actually in this video. But the reason I put this in is because why did the Romans, when they came here, they were excellent mappers and cartographers and stuff. How did they end up with Britain or Scotland looking so wrong there? What was going on there? And I have a reason. I have a theory for this. They believed that this was the land of. The Romans knew. The Romans were actually from here. If you go to this part in Scotland here, you've got a part called Old Rome, and this over here would be Edinburgh on this old map. And this part here, Leith, is Old Rome as well. So the Romans, this part here, which is just over the border of Scotland. This old map. We'll get onto the proper map. This here is where the Romans probably originated. The Roman are the Egyptian Ra men, and they carried the body. They carried the body, or they believed that when people died, as the sun every day, Ra carried the sun over. And they were the Ra men, or the Roman, what became the Roman. Somewhere in history, they split off from the Egyptian religion, and the Egyptians, the Greeks, and the Romans were all the same. We're all the same British people, but the Roman or the Ra men were the people who would take the ferrymen. Yeah, they would take the coin for the people, so they were the taxes. And that's why in the New Testament the Romans are always collecting taxes, because the coin for the boatman to take you across. The ancient tradition is that when the sun died, not just when you died, but every day you would give an offering because the sun would die. In ancient times, they believed that when the sun died, it was harping back to this catastrophe. Would it come back again? Would it resurrect? And yes, it did. But these men took money all through your life, which became our tax. It's the same people just now who are controlling our taxes. London is ancient Egypt. And it's the Ra men, it's the Roman system, the Roman jurisdiction under duress. We're all under jurisdiction. Duress. There's a reason why we're under duress. We're under the Paps of Jura, which is the Egyptian goddess Nut, and Jura is the hills that are up at this part here. But I'll move on to the next. Why did Rome? Well, this should be apparent why the Romans, they believed this. Oh, let me go back 2 seconds. They believed that this land was actually the physical body of Osiris or Orion, stretching out over. And they believed that Sirius came from the north. Sirius was the North Star way back, and Sirius fell down to what we call the central belt or to Orion's belt. underneath the star known as Regus, which is where we get the word register. You know, they're all registered, lost at sea. So underneath Orion, you have the star Regus, and underneath that you have Sirius, which represents to the Egyptian Isis or Softet. And of course, you have the story of Isis looking for Osiris's body. It's chopped into 14 parts. She doesn't find, but she finds every part apart from the penis, which is, you know, the pen of heaven, the thing that points, a dome that points up to heaven, an electrical a tower that points up there. But this all happened here. And when the Romans were either exiled because of this disaster and then returned again to take over Britain, when they came to invade, they stayed for 500 years because they knew that this was the body. It sounds crazy, but if you look at Britain, it looks like the body of man. And this is what I have discovered. All the standing stones in the north of Scotland represent the hippocampus, the head, horses, everything to do with the horse in the heavens, where it's Centaur, Sagittarius, Pegasus, Aquilus. Anything to do with the horse, you'll find all those standing stones here. Anything to do with Adam and Eve, you'll find them all here. Anything to do with Orion, you'll find them all here. But it's projected 3 times over the Isles, which creates a Celtic flag, a Celtic knot, all being held together by Orion. So here is, get onto this file, the normal map, which we recognise as the British Isles. Whether it is that shape or I don't know, but yeah. This is from Gary Belcliffe's book. Did I jump past the introduction? Yeah, I did. The Spine of Albion. Gary Belcliffe and Caroline Hoare. So what they did with this book is they took the work of Guy Raglan Phillips, who in 1974 discovered a network of ancient ley lines called the Brigant or the Briganti, which is what the tribes of Britain were called. And that word Briganti is the word Britain. Yeah. And it goes back to the Celtic word, the 3 bridges, because the Celtic people believed there were 3 bridges over the British Isles. Ireland, or the Isle of Man was the bridge. And this is the man who the Romans and other people believed was the body of Osiris or Orion or Adam. And this is his head and this is his body. And there were 3... there was a path. There were 3 connecting circles, which I'll show. And right down the middle of that 3 connecting circles, holding the 3 sacred lands together, ancient Egypt, Upper Egypt, which is Ireland, Lower Egypt, which is here, and Upper Greece and Upper Thracia, and the Assyria and Babylon were originally here, up here, according to Combs Beaumont. It's true. The Sumer Isles is Sumeria, up here, the Sumer Isles is ancient Sumeria. But when the disaster happened, everything was moved south. And all the standing stones, every standing stone points south-southwest, showing the direction that the sun and the moon fell down to during the plasma event, but also showing the direction of where the people migrated to. So we actually, the standing stones tell us the migration routes as well, and pilgrimage routes, because the standing stones became a place of returning to remember, if you know what I mean. And it's marked 3 times. But in this book, it's a fantastic book. Unfortunately, Gary Belcliffe and Caroline Hoare, for me, the material is absolutely fantastic, but they stick with a lot of the fairy folklore, and they tend to dwell on all that kind of stuff. And what I've discovered is that the fairy folklore come from the Watchers, who fell from this area here, the North Celestial Pole, and they're known as the Tuath, or the Watchers, the Council of the Dawn, or the Days, the Council of Danu, which is the primordial serpent Danu. So, but we'll get on to that. But they went down into Ireland, and that became what we know as the Egyptian religion. And of course,
just one there, the southernmost point down at the bottom there, is that around the Isle of Wight area?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is the Isle of Wight, right down there.
Yeah.
Down the bottom there.
Probably explains why. Probably explains why it's a bit of a satanic fucking trafficking hub.
It is. Yeah, there's a lot of dodgy stuff happens down there.
Wonder why David Icke lives there in a single little.
I didn't want to say anything. Yes, I'm not a fan. He's been, yeah. I'm not a fan in any way of David Icke. I feel as if that he's tried to stop me in many ways in the past.
He knows what he's doing. He's a black magician, mate. He knows what he's doing on the ley lines as well.
It's in their names, bro. It's in their names.
Yeah.
Icke. Well, I can't remember him now because I haven't looked it up for a while. But David is the very top of the spine of Albion here. There's a harp known as lyra, and it's where the Irish people take their symbol, the Guinness harp. And lyra is the harp that David plays, and Apollo plays the harp, and they're the same character. Apollo is David. Apollo character that we know is David, who plays the harp. And according to the Bible, David plays the harp to calm the soul of man. Yeah. Right. So David Icke represents David at the top. He's at the bottom. It's always a mirror. When we get into this, if we do another talk, because maybe there's too much, but if we do another talk, I'll show you it's always about a reflection. The Adam and Eve story is about looking in the mirror and looking into our internal desires and reflecting that outwardly. And so we have the same story reflected 3 times through the British Isles. And David Icke represents David and Goliath. David and Goliath, this is the giant Orion. David slays Goliath with a stone, standing stones. Yeah, but it's all in the heavens. But David Icke, he has a son who's taken the seat now. I didn't actually want to get into this because I don't really want to badmouth. It's just Gareth, it's all code, bro. It's all code. Gareth is the word gar, same as this word here, Gary, Balcliffe. Gareth is a very ancient Celtic word, which means a bridge. It's also the word Arthur. The word gar or ger in Hebrew, like you've got Rangers and Celtic, the Gers, and ger, Celtic and Rangers are here. This area is known as the place of the crossing the river of life. You have the River Liffey here, you have the River Leven, you have Loch Leven, you have the River Leven here. It leaves there and goes down into Ireland, the River Liffey in Dublin. And that's the River of Life, which represents the Milky Way, also marked by Hadrian's Wall. But this River of Life here, what were we talking about there? Oh, damn, seriously, I get lost. What were we talking about there, AJ? Can you remember? Gareth, yeah. This area here is known as the crossing over. It's known as the Elysian Fields in the Greek. It's known as the Duat in the Egyptian mythology. And it was a great waterway that you had to pass through. The Hebrews called it the River of Life. It was also known to the Greeks as the River Eridanus, which you could cross over and go down back to Hades or go up. And the word ger means to cross over in Hebridean and Hebrew and Brythonic Welsh. Ger or garim, someone who crosses over, someone who converts, or someone who goes from one position to another. And in ancient times, this is why Rangers and Celtics exist, because Celtic represents the 4 cardinal points in the green man, which is, the meridian line, and Rangers represent the crossing over of that line. Rangers, the wandering stars, the Rangers, the rovers, who cross over through the ecliptic. And a ger is someone who crosses over. And Gareth and Gary or Gareth Icke is the word garth, to cross over to a bridge, or like in Aberdeen there's a place up here called Garth D, and it's the word Arthur, Garth D. It means a crossing point. It's very important word. Garth, Arth, Art, very important in Britain. Anyway, where was the one that I saw? These Gary Balcliffe and Caroline Hoare, their books are absolutely fantastic, all of it, but they tend to stick to the fairy and the folklore stuff, which is very important. But and once you stand at the store, I don't mean to sound egotistic, I'm beyond all that, because I realise that what we're actually dealing with here is we are the Elohim, as it says in Genesis 1. We are the creators of this realm, and we've been taken over by a demiurge or a demigod mentality. It's a reptilian. It's the reptilian man. It's just the mind, the lower mind, and those who have no emotion or no love or no care, who are greedy, who are, you know, or these bloodlines, they live in that reptilian mind. But the natural being, the living being, lives in the upper room. We're coming into the time of, we are in the time of Aquarius. So as Jesus says, we should be living in the upper room, the upper mind. And this is all the north, and the north. This is the mind of God, and this is the body of God. Jesus and the New Testament talks about the mind of Christ, which is Hercules called out through all the trials and all the labors. The labors of Hercules represent the 7 ages of man. And if you go down here, you'll see in London, there's a 7 Ages of Man museum in London. And Orion's overlaid over London, because Orion sits here and sits over here and sits here. But he's been overlaid in the material, because Orion represents the Christ ego, not that it represents it represents the flesh, the man taking all, living as God, taking everything. And that's what the story of Orion and Osiris are the same being. And the Egyptians looked up and they called Osiris Orion. But the three parts of heaven, from Hercules to Orion to Hades, this underworld or this material underworld realm, it's all over the British Isles, and it's all told in the stories of the Standing Stones. And this book is great, but they tend to stick with the fairy stuff, whereas I love the psychology, the anatomy, the biblical story. I'm trying to pull it all together, and I've already identified that these lands are not just the 33 sacred points, but these lands are representing the physical Adam, the physical Osiris, the physical, and that's why so many peoples, Romans and others, had such an interest here in the lands, because when the disaster happens, the lands broke up, but the centre of the earth is direct north, and the top of Scotland was always the lands directly under direct north, and all the hills and all the pyramids, all the hills are all pyramids in the very north of Scotland. In fact, all through Britain you'll find pyramids. But these all represent, there's tons and tons and tons in this area of Scotland, because this represents the pyramidal tract in the back of your brain behind the pineal gland. And here is the pineal gland. Now, I put these images in. I don't want anybody thinking that, hey, I knew it, he's a Mason, because I'm certainly not. I've got no disrespect or anger or hatred towards, nor do I have any love for Masons. They actually carried a lot of what the British people had was the information that the Masons have now, which they have completely diluted and lost. And just like all the Greek mythology and the Egyptian mythology, as we went through time, whatever time we're at, poets and you know, bards and people during the Renaissance took the things of the heavens, took the stories of the past, even your Arthur stories, and recreated other stories around them. So it's, you know, it's very difficult to get back to what the real stories are. And the only way you can get back to the real stories is by what is the root of the message of all the stories in the heavens. And really what it is you have this masculine energy and a feminine kundalini energy. And these are the two primordial serpents that wind around the pole of heaven, which represent our brain, which represent the reptilian mind. You have the upper mind, and then you have the mind of God, which is the house of Peter, Peter's pearly gates, the house of Cephas, which is the upper room, which Jesus talks about. And Aquarius is actually here on the horizon over Scotland right now. So we're in Jesus says in the New Testament, the disciples say, you know, when will the sign, will we go for the Passover? And he says, you know, you'll see a man with a water pitcher.
What just on that picture there, picture there, Stephen, the middle of England, namely Manchester and Birmingham, what area does that correlate to those
I'm
places in
gonna-
particular?
I will get to so all these symbols are what the Masons, it's ancient accepted free, Scottish rite, isn't it? And what we're seeing here is the meridian line. See Jacob's ladder, the Union Jack, here we even have the Union Jack in this here, you see it. And the reason why is because the actual geological strata of Britain, I don't know if you've seen the pie grid map. What I'll do is I'll share it on my page after I come off. I'll share it on my Facebook page. But the pie grid map, I don't know who done it. Somebody else done it, but they basically put all the work that I've done, all the work that everybody else has done into one big map, and they show you that the Jacob's ladder is made up by the strata of the earth. So in Scotland, you have a type of rock that is blue, and then it runs through a red, and another red rock that runs through the entire Britain. And right in the centre of that, you've got this, the meridian line, and the Isle of Wight and the spine of Albion, and there's this ladder that, the red and the blue you see on the Union Jack, and this is why we have the Union Jack. It's and wherever you go in the world, you'll find the Union Jack, even Australia and all that, because they're showing, and this checkerboard here, this is Orion, this is the ecliptic part, the three pillars of heaven, and the central pillar being the North Celestial Pole, the centre of heaven. And this here is the sun and the moon making this negative positive electrical charge as it moves over the earth. And that all happens over Britain. And Britain is the tree of life. Up here is the tree of life, and down here is a tree of knowledge of good and evil. And I'll show you that here right now, actually, in the heavens. You can see that, yeah? Yeah, you've got my... Yeah. So what you see here is this is the North Celestial Pole, and in where's me? In Scotland here. Okay, the North Celestial Pole circles. This is where Ursa Major, Ursa Minor circles this entire area. Okay, and
which is over Edinburgh, right?
No, this is over the north of Scotland. Edinburgh's here.
Oh, sorry, yeah, you go a bit lower. Sorry,
everything moves in an anti-clockwise direction over, including Edinburgh. Okay, so Edinburgh's pulled in it. So this is the Garden of Eden. This is the land of Canaan, and this is in Glasgow. This is Glasgow here. This is the land of Buchanan. And if you go to the island, you'll find so many even Madeleine McCann. The McCann family. He was Irish. Land of Canaan. So this is the land of Canaan, the land of Phoenicia, which is Ireland, Phoenicia. And this is the land of Assyria and so on down here, which was Babylon underworld. So, yeah, where were we going there? So, yeah, it's all hidden in, this is down here, and this is the Kabbalah tree. So I'll go back again. The tree of life is the spine of Albion. You have the tree of life down to Hadrian's Wall, and then the tree of life is reflected, reversed, and it becomes the Kabbalah tree. But what they've done is they've overlaid their Kabbalah tree over the entire Britain, because the Kabbalah tree represents Malkut, man or woman, standing. Malkut is the material world. Right, so man is brought down to the material realm, which is London. So Orion is overlaid over London here. So man, instead of being standing upright with his arms, so here is the ecliptic portion of the sky, and the crux, the Argus Navi, pass through there. So the citizenship, the Argus Navi and Jason and all that pass over this part in the heavens. They also pass this part in the heavens and this part in the heavens and Ireland. And this is projected out. This is the center of the earth. So this is the tree, and it projects out to the entire earth. And Gary Belcliffe tells you that in his book, that whatever we put into this line is projected into it resonates to the ends of the earth, because the dragon energies move down and move out to the ends of the earth. They move round the North Celestial Pole, the centre of heaven, and the centre of the earth, because the Earth, this is in the center of the Earth. America has been pushed to the outside, and New Zealand and Russia are all pushed, but in the center of the Earth, the dragon energies come in, they move down the spine of Albion, and then they go down through the Isle of Wight, through France, and then away out over the entire Earth, and then they projected over China. This is why you have the green dragon, the red dragon, the yellow dragon, and they had the dragon empires because, again, it was the Draco Bloods taking over. They were cast out. This was the Garden of Eden, and they were cast out to the east. We are told that Adam and Eve were cast out, but no, it's not. The serpent was cast out of Eden. And the reason what that story is the pole star 5,000 years ago was in Draco, in the star called Thuban, and something happened, and it was a plasma event. A comet appeared in the sky, according to Combs Beaumont, which is, I believe, Diana and Apollo, which is David with the harp, and Diana, which is Artemis. The sun and moon split in the sky, and Venus fell, brought Mars with it. At one time, the sun, the moon, the stars, everything was at the North Celestial Pole. Everything was up here. There was no ecliptic, and there was no underworld. But something happened, and a comet, which looked like a double comet, came down. And this is all on the standing stones in the northeast of Scotland. I don't think I'll be able to show it all tonight, but I have planned to show it all. I've got it all here on slides to show it. But a comet came down, and it devastated the world. And that is also the story of Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed dying in the Virgin Ponte de Alma, which means the Virgin, the tunnel of the Virgin, which all goes back to this catastrophe, because Apollo and Diana, the story is that Diana or Artemis was jealous of Orion and killed Orion, maybe sent the Scorpio to kill Orion, or maybe she killed Orion with a bow and arrow. Maybe Apollo killed her twin brother. And it's all about twins. If we look at what we call the Second World War and the Holocaust, they were experimenting on twins, because our creation fell into this three realms, creating an ecliptic realm and a lower realm, an underworld, which is ruled by the serpent brain. It happened with a plasma event, and this is the story of Diana falling down and the story of Orion being struck down by the Scorpio, which is all celestial events. It's all celestial events. What actually happened is the plasma of Diana, the two comets, and I believe it's Diana and Apollo, fell from the North Celestial Pole, hitting Orion, and that Orion is Orion is the net. It's where we get the internet from, right? It extends. Orion has been mapped everywhere. The Aztecs, everywhere. Everywhere you go, pyramids are mapped out to Orion, because Orion represents the material man, the physical Christ, living, walking on water. Orion walked on water. Jesus walked on water. Yeah. So Orion represents the here and now, the physical being, dealing with the physical flesh, with the beast carnal emotions, with the lusts and desires. And so what we are actually seeing is an astronomical event where Diana and Apollo, and according to the story, Orion may have been flirting with Diana, may have even been flirting with Apollo, because they're all homosexual as well. But something happened, and the Scorpio and Libra appear in the heavens at that point. The heavens fall down, everything falls from the North Celestial Pole, creating a fallen man, which we call Orion, who becomes the dead man, who the Egyptians later worship as the god Osiris, Nimrod, the god of the living, Osiris, the god of the living and the dead. And it's all contained. It's just the same story, yeah. But what we're actually seeing on the standing stones all over Britain is this event where a twin comet, Apollo and Diana, the sun and the moon, fell out of the sky. And what I was trying to say is there was a magnetic, something happened, and we know that Venus, the bright morning star, Lucifer, Venus was the first to fall, because in Isaiah it tells us, "Oh, Lucifer, bright morning son of the dawn, how you have fallen." And what we can see is on the standing stones and on the ancient sites, like there's temples to Apollo and Diana all over Scotland, and what we can see is that there was a focus on Apollo and Diana, and there was a focus on a shifting of everything from Capricorn to Sagittarius. So the winter solstice was shifted from Capricorn to Sagittarius when this disaster happened. And that's all contained in the mystery stories as well, because Sagittarius is half man, half horse, which represents the beast mentality of the horse, the animalistic nature, and the upper man firing. Sagittarius is firing the arrows at Scorpio, killing the beasts, killing the nature that, you know, the kill of that kills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
It's
it's interesting as well. Obviously, to put it into a physical perspective, I think everything to do with the spine, you know, shows us like so much, not just in this aspect, but it literally it shows you how important the spine is to us. You know, like you know, I've been doing a lot of talking about this recently. How, you know, the spine is your antenna, and if you look at most modern lifestyles these days, everywhere you go, right, you just see like kids it's like this, like sat there hunched over. You said, you know, like even the state of our shoes, you know, everyone, I think 1 in 2 people
they're doing
end up with
damage the spine and the, you know, that part of the body.
So it's like 1 in 2 people get chronic back problems now. It's all about like it's all about protracting the spine, not allowing it to extend. So you full capacity.
Even way back in the 1900s, do you know the hats, the top hats? You've probably seen many videos online. You know, they were rimming it with mercury. There's a reason why that is as well, because probably you had the Spanish flu in the early 1900s, and so you had a Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. Whenever you have Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions, you get sidereal or sickness, and but they were lining the hats away back with mercury, which was sending people mad. Then there was Ebola hats also lined with mercury, and then even the fact that we wear shoes with we know this with the soles and all that. The fact that, you know, the feet are called soles, you know, and yet we cover them up, and there's been it's been great, because when all the lockdowns and all that happened, there was many people, including myself, who were getting out there and getting their shoes and socks off and getting touching in the land. And I think that was significant. I think the earth itself was calling out to us to do that, so that we, whose head had we'd removed our heads from this present system. We knew there was something going on, but we were still longing, and we still do. We still long to be alive and connect with this beautiful earth that we live on, and that was something that was absolutely beautiful during the lockdowns. Everybody was getting out and actually getting in with their bare feet and connecting with the earth. And this is what this image is showing here. This image here of the man, this would represent Orion, but it also represents Hercules at the top of the tree, but he's brought down. The story of Hercules is he travels down the spine of Albion. He travels down. Up here, there's the standing stones up in Inverness, and all the stones in Inverness are marked with Hercules battles, everything to do with the trials and labors of Hercules. Every standing stone. In fact, I'm going to show images somewhere. I'm going to show. I need to move this. I keep almost pausing this, so I need to move that so I can minimize this. What I was showing earlier here, this is the North Celestial Pole. This is the tree of life. Okay? This is the beasts that the Bible talk about. And this is the tree of good and evil. And if you look at Downing Street, if you look at CBNS, CNN News, they all have the peacock. Above the door at Downing to go down. Whitechapel. The top of the North Pole is called the White Throne of God. The bottom of the South Celestial Pole is called the White Chapel or the White House of God. So you've got a White House in America, which represents the North Celestial Pole. But this South Celestial Pole is the underworld. And you'll see in the South Celestial Pole, there's the great river Eridanus. And this is the Fornax asterism, which represents the fire. Next to that, you've got the Phoenix, where we're talking about earth, fire. These contact the earth. They represent earth, wind, fire, and everything. Time, you see. And this river actually is a physical river. It runs from Hadrian's Wall all the way down the Great Orme, the Severn River, and then it joins at the Thames. And that's why the Romans came. The Romans never built roads. They built embankments that ran alongside these waterways to take the horses and carts along the ancient pilgrimage. But this here, do you see this known as Pavo, the peacock?
Yeah.
See, if you look at the door of Downing Street, it has the peacock design, yeah?
Yeah.
See, if you look at CNN News, CBN News, they have the peacock with all the different colours, rainbow colours. Yeah.
Oh. It's so multi-layered. It's so multi-layered and deep in itself, isn't it? Like just every tiny little look and cranny. You can't not deny that it's like all coded, because
it's absolute code. Yeah. If I didn't know
to have that, to go to that many depths in everything in our whole lives, so many layers. It's got to be programmed with codes.
Do you know why it's code? Because this might blow people's minds. It's not real.
It's not real.
The world that we're living in is a complete fabrication. The world that we touch physically, if I knew you physically and I could touch your shoulders and hands and that, but most of us, our heads are not in that physical. I'm not saying that we're living in some weird dimension. Everything around us is physical and real. We are the creators of this realm. But everything that we imagine to even exist is just nonsense. Everything is a script on the heavens. From your every single story. Like today, Nigel Mandelson. What's his name? It's not Nigel Manson. Lord Mandelson. The word Lord means Baal, right? Lord Mandelson stepped down. Now Mandelson, Mandela. Mandela. It's the same ceremonies over and over and over. But Mandelson, Lord, is the word Baal, master. You know, I was thinking about this earlier on. Do you remember computers? They used to have in the back of it, you had master and slave. You could switch them over in the old computers.
Oh, yeah,
do you remember that? Yeah. Well, that's how Britain is. We had this master-slave switch, and the Hanoverians came along. It's been going on forever. We actually kicked them out round about the Dark Ages. We completely kicked them out, and that's when Tartaria boomed. And then somehow they came back in. Well, I know exactly when they came back in. I've actually got the families and where they came from and when they came in and where they invaded and what estates they took over. And the reason why they took over certain estates, because these are all very important estates in the north of Scotland. Then they took over the northern estates in Ireland. Then they took over the comparative estates in England. And these are the families that still exist today. They were kicked out in and then came back in 1066. Most of our history, William Wallace, Robert the Bruce, I'm talking about Scottish people, you know, even the English people, all your kings weren't English, they were Normans. England didn't exist, it was underwater. You know, as we were talking about earlier on, Stonehenge was underwater. It's just been discovered. That's what I was saying. This guy shows that Stonehenge never existed. The mound that is around Stonehenge today existed, and stones were put there, but all the way around it was a massive waterway. It was a massive waterway and a pilgrimage that everybody knew was coming into the underworld and leaving this watery, maritime. You know, why are we under maritime law? Because the North Celestial Pole was the navigational maritime star. Yeah, and that led us to the upper mind. And this is what this image even here is showing us, because here. It's in Hebrew and it's not very clear, but it says there, Keter, And Keter there means head or crown, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it says there head. It also says Elohim. I was saying earlier on, we're the Elohim. So we are the head of God. We are made in the image. We are the image of the Creator, masculine, divine Alma, divine Mother, which is represented by Cassiopeia and Persephone, and divine Father, which is represented by Kepha, Peter, Cephas, also Hercules, the called out one, the one who's her ecclesia. See, even the word Hercules, I don't know if your viewers or you grasp that yet. The word Hera relates to the earth in Greek, and Eccles, we're told that Hercules was named after Hera because Hera, the sister of Zeus and the wife of Zeus, was jealous. So, because Hercules was someone else's child, and so we have this battle between Hera and Hercules, but it's not. What it is between earth and man, the ascended man. It's a transitional period that the gods didn't exist. The stories were made up as anatomical, psychological events in the heavens, telling us of our psyche that, Hera is the destructive force of the earth. Hercules is also, as we can all be, the dominant male destructive force, or we can redeem ourselves by the sweat of our brow, by our labours. Exactly what Genesis tells us. Adam shall now work by the sweat of his brow. And this is what this is why Britain is the spine of Albion, because it represents the anatomical, physical body of man, and each of the asterisms that move over project glory, victory, mercy, diversity, severity, and your crown. And at the very top here, it's called the Keter, or the crown, or corona, is the Gallic. In fact, is your partner, is she not called Corey?
Corin, yeah.
Corin or Corey means core Gallic, which means circle or family. It's where we get the word core for core of an apple, obviously. Corey can also mean a vessel to hold, like a womb. The ancient Greeks and Gallic both called the maiden Persephone, Andromeda, Eve. They called her the Corey or the core. In India today, if you are a man, you take the name Singh Gar. I was talking about Gar earlier on. The word Singh, S-I-N, Singha. You're a Singh if you're Indian man. You're a Singh or a singer. Whereas if you're a woman, you never take the name Singh. You always take the name Kaur as a woman.
Interesting.
It goes back to the ancient Celtic Corey, the circle. And this is the circle, you see. We were all the circle. And I'm away to show there are 3 circles, which I'll move on to that because we're never going to get through this. There's just so much to talk about. It's just
I was actually going to suggest, we talked about it before. I think it'd be great for all the viewers and listeners, and that if we did a part 2 as well, because there's so much more to add on to this. I think if we try and dilute it all, I don't think we're doing the information any justice trying to rush through it all in one sitting.
AJ, I can't dilute things. Anybody that knows me, I just can't do dilute. I'm actually restraining myself quite. I've been doing this for a while, so I'm quite seasoned with it now. I know what's going on and how to prevent it. But it's ginormous. It's massive. Really, because of the deception. The deception. We think this deception has been going on forever. But as I was saying, we booted them out, and they came back in 1066. We managed to win again, probably 13, 14, 1500s, and then in the 1700s when politics came in, politics came in, the 2 poles, the north-west pole and the south-west pole. We ended up with all our bardic members, or all our people who had knowledge, ending up in a parliament in Westminster in the south celestial pole, which represented Hades in the underworld. And so that's why we've lost all consciousness. We have saturated ourselves. This is no disrespect, by the way, to people in England or anything at all. Everything has been reclaimed. The lands has been reclaimed back. And if we go by the biblical narrative, then God promises his covenant people, not just the land that was promised, but the land and more. So, you know, it's the entire earth, in fact, will come back under the understanding of what the tree is. That's what will happen in the end of days. But so before I move on, I want to try and move on to show where the three powers of center, where the North Celestial Pole moves around. You see 3 points here. So Ursa Minor is mapped on standing stones all around here in Scotland. It's mapped on standing stones all around there, which is the pole star. And it's mapped on standing stones all around this area here. And the next image I've got, I think, there we go, shows you, I'll go back to that a bit. See the serpent round?
Just going to reset the screen. I was going to reset the screen because I don't think your screen's mirroring what we're seeing. At the minute, I've got on the screen, I've got the power of centre.
Gary Belcliffe. Yeah, so what Gary Belcliffe and Caroline Hall, their book, The Spine of Albion, they've got quite a few books out, but very helpful because what they do is centralise the positions of power. This is basically what the book's about, where the energy lines and the ley lines and all these Celtic mythologies all had their sort of power, and it was all centralised and controlled by the Isle of Man. And this is where the bards and the Brythonic bards all met, because the word brith, see that word brith, it's the word for it's the ancient Welsh word meaning king. Brion, Brian, Brith, Brithid, Britty, Brittite. It's the word covenant. So, but the bards studied the heavens. So the Isle of Man symbolism is, this. Okay. Now I've tried to explain here. Orion is mapped in this area. Orion is mapped in this area, and Orion is mapped in here 3 times, because this is the upper world, this is Upper Egypt descending into the lower world, and this is Lower Egypt descending into what the Egyptians called the Duat. And the Egyptian journey of the dead, Osiris is the god of the dead, and Orion is overlaid, Osiris is overlaid over London perfectly. I don't know if you've seen that video, but I've got a video showing how perfectly Orion is overlaid. The reason why is because they brought the material consciousness, the conscious man who knows better, who can rise up into his higher self, but they brought the material man down and they've overlaid it immediately over London. It's probably the same over Dublin, and it certainly is the same over the Glasgow. In fact, the word Orion, this island here, is called Arran. And the reason why is Arran is Orion. And Ireland is Ireland, Ireland. And also you've got the Aran Isles here, which directly connect with Princes Street in London and in Edinburgh. There's a ley line that runs from Princes Street in Edinburgh, from the castle, right to the Aran Isles. And the reason why that's called Aran Isles is because Aran moves over this area.
Wow.
Everything moves, the North Celestial Pole, right? So the 7 asterisms of the North. Let's see, we got them. Let's jump forward.
It obviously explains why London represents, nothing better than the Hunger Games at the minute, right? This is all districts, complete division, crime through the roof. Like most places represent something like downtown Baghdad, during the Gulf War.
I've been in London since the lockdown. When the lockdown happened, I was in London and it was empty. I was walking down past the Ben Stone, Big Ben, on the South Celestial Pole. And that's what Big Ben represents. Big Ben represents the Egyptian Ben Stone. There would have been a temple there to Isis, Softet, Cyrus. The Egyptians worshipped Cyrus. The underworld worshipped Cyrus because Cyrus and Venus and Mars and Jupiter, what the Bible calls the wandering stars, fell out of the North Celestial realm, kept not their first estate, as the Bible says. An estate is, well, Britain is made up and divided into wards and estates. And the reason why is because the estates reflect the estates in the heavens, the asterisms. But it tells us in the New Testament that those in the book of Jude, which is only a short book, it says the wandering stars, the rovers, the land rovers, the rovers, the wandering stars, with Saturn leading the way, the planets, the planetaria, which means to wander. The Greek word planet means to wander, kept not their first estate. Now, it's not talking about, it is talking about fallen angels, but angels are angles of light. It's talking about planets orbiting luminaries that had electromagnetic frequencies and mass energy, which interacted with the Earth, suddenly fell out of the sky. And it was prompted by the fall of Venus. And they all fell into what we understand as the ecliptic. And this is what the ancient people are measuring here, the center of that fallen realm where everything fell down to, which is man. And I put this image, I went back there a bit, but I put this image here of the 7 main chakras. And I'm sure you understand that the Muladhara, the root chakra, is this materialism. London rules the material corporate world. The America, or the UCC law runs on behalf of the corporate Orion, the corporate London, who's the dead man living in the. This is why, under the law, you're dead because you're registered under this. See this here, see this man, these legs, the Eleman symbol. You see the bright star? That's Sirius. It's also Regis. So what the ancients were marking is where Regis fell, Sirius fell out of the North Celestial Pole, Isis and Osiris. They fell out of heaven. The story of Hercules, the fall of Hercules, becoming Orion, the selfish, egotistic man, fell out of the heavens, and our ancestors marked everything below here is the underworld. Everything below here, the underworld.
So just see on the outer circle there, on that book, and where the cursor is on the bottom right hand node, you got obviously the 3 things. Obviously, that's the traverse of Polaris, right? Sorry, Sirius. Sorry, yeah.
It's the fall of Sirius from the North Celestial Pole, and this is marking the Polaris.
Yeah. So where that bottom right one is actually isn't far from Lincoln, where I am.
Lincoln's very important. Even the name to Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln was the first president. This is the body of Abraham too.
So I've been learning loads about how it's all linked to where I live, and it's really strategic. And obviously the cathedral is situated where it is. I've done lots of work around that and loads of videos.
All the cathedrals make up a lightning bolt. Through Britain. So you have Dornoch up here, Dornoch. See, I stand at the door and knock. Hercules is marked here. Jesus says, see, I stand at the door knock. Well, this is at Inverness. It's called Dornoch. See, I stand at the door knock and knock. He answers will come in and eat me. But the next one is Elgin. Then you've got St. Martha. Then you've got one, I think, Dunblane. It's a lightning bolt going through the spine of Albion. All the cathedrals make up the Zeus's lightning bolt, which we see on the standing stones.
Because me and the kids and that we've seen at night time, when it gets dark at first, you can see Polaris, and then within a few hours and that, it's the other side.
This here represents the plasma event. This here, this is a lightning bolt going through. This here is a house. You see it with 2 notches. That's a notch for the male, and that's the female. This is Cassiopeia, and this is Cephas, and this is the door to the house. And if I go back, I'm giving the game away here. If I go back, this is the house of Cephas. It's a house in the heavens. And
do you just a quick one, mate? Like when you've been learning all this stuff and it's just like flooding in, like you're saying, you've got like all these memories and like these downloads come back and stuff like that.
yeah,
Do you ever stop and just think like, man, I'm literally on a quest in a real life game of Zelda?
I know exactly who I am, AJ.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know.
I can absolutely tell. But I mean, like your day-to-day journey, it literally
Yeah,
feels like this is a game of Zelda, right? And you're constantly getting all the clues on this quest to do with the land, and we have little messages that pop up in our life, give us all the little things that we need at the right times, right? It's
yeah.
literally like a
I've
game
never
of
been a
Zelda, isn't it?
gamer, bro. I've never been a
Yeah.
gamer, but I know what you're on about. I've never been into gaming.
Mm.
I'm the most boring. I absorb everything. All my life, when people have been sitting playing games, I'm sitting reading books. When the internet came along, not so much now because it's a horrible monster now. But when the internet came along, I just spent years reading stuff, and I'm just a sponge. Yeah? But what I've realised is, and you're the same. All of us are the same. I am not special. What I am saying is, I know who I am. I know who I am. I am the creator of
And that's
this
what this
world.
journey's about.
Yeah. The heavens tell us the story of who we are. The standing stones tell us the story of who we are. It's projected 3 times over the British Isles because the British Isles represents the body of man, and the body of man represents the mind, the body, and the spirit. The Catholic Church was not invented in Europe, not invented in the Middle East. Rome never invaded Ireland. The Tuath Danann, who are the Irish gods, were cast out down this ley line. Down this ley line here. The Tuath Danann were the council of the watchers, the angels of heaven, and they worshipped the serpent energy. And the Tuath Danann went down. There's depictions on all the stones, all down here. Even this little area here is called Maiden, the Maiden Stone. Up here is the Maiden Stone. And this is the story of the Hittite princess being sold down into the Ramesses, Egypt. And that's what, that's a condensed sort of, if that makes any sense to anyone. What this is up here is, this area up here is Cephas, which is Adam, and Cassiopeia, Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve, we're told, were tricked by the serpent, but it's not. It's the serpent energies in our mind, materialism, looking in on ourselves. Let's see if I can get there, just there. Do you see that picture here? Cassiopeia?
Yeah.
You see she's got a mirror, right? Now, up until the 1400s, the depiction of Adam and Eve in the garden was Eve was a serpent body with the head of Eve, and there was a mirror in the hands of the serpent, but it had the face of Eve. And what that is all about is the story of, to the Greeks, this would be Orion raised up. Osiris raised up, the king Osiris, not Orion anymore, but Cephas raised up into the house of God, and this would be Isis, and on the throne next to. This is the ascended, and I can show you Aberdeenshire. They've actually, some of the estates have the body of Osiris laid out as, same as Edinburgh. Edinburgh itself is the body of Osiris. I don't know if you've seen that in my post.
Yeah.
But up here, in a place called Haddo Estate, we have the ascended Egyptian. This is all the land of Egypt. This is all the land of Greece. This is all the land of Thracia. All of it. Each civilization took the same stories from the heavens and just retold them. But that's
all that happens, isn't it? It's just generational thing. It's just, again, going back to the codes and the programs. It's just that the programmers just reprogram it based on so many layers, right? It's culture, sport, evolution, education, medicinal war, like all of it, right? And then that just like amalgamates into the next generation, next generation. But the templates are still the same, aren't they?
Yeah, we just add our own versions to it. Do you know, every single movie, I never, like I was saying, I just read. I've never been into movies. I've never been into gaming. I go walking. I go looking at stones. I do lots of outdoor stuff, or used to, not so much now. But what was I going to say? I've forgotten forgot now. I forgot. I get sidetracked. Sorry about that, Jay. I get sidetracked about something. I was thinking something there.
You're just saying you go walking and over the stones and that, rather than gaming and television.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Rather, thank you very much. But recently I found myself over the last 10 years actually going out my way to watch just about every movie that I can. And I never used to be into any movies at all, ever. Never fascinated. I've never had any actors or actresses that I've thought, wow. I've never been interested in any of the Hollywood. I've always liked music. I've loved music, but I've never followed anybody or had a desire to idolize them or follow the next track or whatever. Nothing at all. I've always just been a reader and studier and walker, an absorber of information. But I've been watching so many films and see every single film from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Well, the Seven Dwarfs is the seven Pleiades, the seven,
Yeah.
And this Britain represents a giant, like a god. The land of the giants, Albion. We can be the giant, or we can be the dwarfs or the trolls that live under the canopy of heaven. And the seven dwarfs in the story, they go mining for precious stones, but they're exiled because of the wicked queen. Well, that's the story of Cassiopeia, Cephas, and Cassiopeia and Andromeda. Andromeda selling herself out, going down into Egypt. The world coming into dark. Every single, even Alice in Wonderland. I've been watching so many films for the last, and every single movie, everything, even all of it is telling us the story of the heavens. Even all of it. There's not one single movie that I've watched that is not telling. Even like try and watch comedy films like Apocalypse Clown or something that was an Irish film. Everything about it is about the heavens. You've got in that Apocalypse Clown, which is quite a good film, you've got clowns at the end of the world, sort of a plasma event happens and these clowns are all attending a funeral. So the clowns, pretty deep esoteric stuff. It's all to do with Orion, the Fool. And all these clowns are running about Ireland after a plasma event happens, the end of the world. And they're trying to get from one point to another. And they're being chased by, it's all asterisms. These characters are all the story. That everything, every single movie, not all of it. Everything is the story of the fall of the divine feminine, left brain, right brain, being tricked by emotion, looking in the mirror, as Cassiopeia is. And the word Cassiopeia, you think of the word Cassie, it's Spanish meaning house. Cephas is the house. Cassiopeia. This might actually shake a few people as well, knock a few, because these lands are known as Albion, albino and white, and Aryan, Aaron, Orion, and the Aryan people gave the Vedic people the religion because the main gods are all gods of the Celtic people that the Vedas are practicing. What the Vedas and the Hindus are practicing all comes from here, all of it. But you've got Cassiopeia here, and Cassie means house in Spanish, and opia is like utopia, or utopia, being exhilarated, high, utopia. And that's what the story of Cassiopeia, and this is Eve. If I don't know if I showed that. Where is that? I don't know if you're familiar with this guy's work here. I'm not a big fan of what he's putting out, but he puts out a lot of good stuff. But what he's branding this guy, the Gnostic Academy, no bad disrespect to him, he's doing a fantastic work. But he's not. It's not just him. There's people like Bill Donahue, who's I think just recently passed away on YouTube. He tells you that Adam is Cephas. Atom Ra. The reason why the Egyptians called their first god Adam Ra, is because according to Andis Collins in his book Stars, Stones and Scholars, which is true because it's marked on the standing stones. Before I read that book, I'd identified that the sun 5,000 years ago rose in the house of Cephas right here. and set right here in the house of Cephas. And at the moment, when the sun sets in the winter, it's here. We've moved from the north of Inverness. The poles, the magnetic north has moved back again, and we're about to enter into God's. This is Cephas, Peter's pearly gates. Kepha is Khufu. So the pyramids at Giza, see the pyramids at Giza, the one called the Khufu pyramid, it actually means Kepha, which means Cephas, Adam, and Peter. It's the Greek word Peter. Peter's pearly gates.
Wow.
And on this rock, Peter, I will build my core church, Kirk. Even the story, what's that guy that just got killed? Kirk, Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk, yeah.
CC 33. And on this rock, the black rock, Peter, on this rock, what rock is on the earth that Cephas Peter sits on? You see, the Bible's actually heavenly estates. And Cassiopeia, if you look at Cassiopeia, see that shape there? It's a W. Yeah? See the letter, the Hebrew letter for sin or S? It's a W.
Interesting.
Meaning sin. And in Hebrew, the word, the W, you sound it as sin or shin. That's where we get the sin from, the sin of Eve. But it isn't Eve at all, because what's actually happening, it's a story that our ancestors knew. Eve has got the blame up into the 1400s. Eve represented a serpent, a desire, the reptilian mind. Eve represented the reptilian mind, reflecting on our inner reptilian. Your reptilian mind's here. You can see Cassiopeia, right? The man here. Your reptilian mind's here. Your logical, rational mind, and then the upper mind, the I am mind, that's seated in the upper room. And she's looking not to the upper mind, not to the logical mind, but to the emotional mind. And this is our inner desires, a reflection of ourself. But that used to be shown in ancient times as a snake on the tree, as the house of Cassiopeia. And what that represents historically is this is the Hittite Empire, the king and queen of the Ethiopians, because this is I was talking about Albion, Albino. Well, in the heavenly story, this is the king and queen of Ethiopia. Now, if Ireland is ancient Egypt and the north of Scotland is Ethiopia, were these people light-skinned or dark-skinned? Yeah. There's a lot of talk about the Hammadi texts and all that in Ethiopia. Ethiopia today exists because it slipped out of the Mediterranean basin. It's sand, most of Africa. Africa's appeared and disappeared that many times through catastrophes. It slips down and comes back up again. I believe that certain islands and certain lands appear and disappear. But the funny thing is that this is King Cephas, or Peter's pearly gates, and his wife are the queen and king of Ethiopia. And this is marked, this is from Anders Collins's book, Starstones and Scholars. Did I put that in there? Let's see. Sorry, I'm flicking back and forward here. No, maybe not. Anyway, let's go back. I go back to these thingies here, this image here. I was talking about the body, the mind, and the spirit. Ireland was never invaded by the Romans. They planted the bishops there, and the bishops went over and proselytized the island, rebranding all the ancient mythology and the ancient Star Lore. St. George and the dragon became different saints, and so on and so on. And the story of Hercules or George or Andrew, when he was in this central part, when the stories was played out in the heavens as Orion, it was St. Andrew. When it was up here, it was St. George. When it was down here, it was St. George. But this is all the story of Hercules, the called out one. And the called out one represents the Kundalini energy going down into the negative, but bringing that Kundalini energy I'm not into the Kundalini stuff at all, but it's about training the dragon material serpent brain. And this is what all the religions are about. So now I'm going to spend a wee bit of time. How long have we been rolling for? Have we been going for a while?
We began 2.25. I was going to suggest maybe we do a bit of a summary, and then we'll rebook in for part 2, which so people can digest everything we've been through in this one.
Unfortunately, I have wandered a little bit, but I'm going to use this. If we're going to do another one, I'll use this again and continue on, because what I'm trying to get back to this here.
I think it would be really good to do like a little mini series, because it's like there's so much depth to this, and then obviously in the show notes I can put like what we've been through in episode 1, episode 2, because a lot of people might need to like re-listen twice, just because it's so mind-blowing for people. But I know how much it resonates as well. Like I've spoken to so many people in the last few weeks about this, and it just resonates with so many people, hence why so many people are desperate for me to obviously do some podcasts with you.
This is not Steven J.D. Beattie's idea. I'm actually taking, I did want to begin this by giving the entire list and showing all the pictures and the images of the books, because people don't really understand the Scottish accent as well, but we'll do that another time. But the books that I have studied and the books that all of us should study are the key to understanding who we are. And anything esoteric, whether it's Hindu, whatever you're doing, whatever, anything spiritual, it all comes back to here. So we can actually, because our ancestors, those who were upon the Argus Navi, the ancient ancestors mapped after this cataclysm, the geodetic shape of the world, the actual shape of the world. We can discover what's from the underworld, what the physical earth is. So places like Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, America, things that are traditionally from there are teaching of the dragons and worship of the dragon cult. And things which are above the Argus Navi and marked out in the physical lands by the asterisms are the things which are safe. But all of it comes back to the spine of Albion and to the North Celestial Pole. The North Celestial Pole and the 7 asterisms is what every religion focuses on. Each of the 3 monotheistic religions have separated. Judaism deals with law, which is the laws of this middle part of nature. Islam deals with the moon, and Christianity deals with the sun. So you get the sun, the moon, and the legal system in between, the polarities. And every religion's based on these movements over the British Isles. So what I want to show here, because I did really want to show this. We can see here Ursa Minor, Ursa Major, Draco. Draco is the great serpent in the book of Revelation that was cast down. The reason that Draco was cast down is because the pole star began in Cephas, moved to Draco. Don't know what happened there. Maybe a disaster happened one time around. Moved to Draco. Then 5,000 years ago, the great serpent was cast down, him and his holy ones with him. Now, this here, and I'm looking at the Scotland map because I'm very familiar with Scotland. You'll see it says the line of the solstices. Yeah. And at the bottom, can we all see that? If everybody's able to see that, you see Hydra. Now, this ends the mystery. I hate mystery. If it's a mystery, it's Babylon. If I can't work it out, this has been my theory all this journey for like the last 40 years. If it's mystery, Babylon. If it's a mystery and I can't work it out, then it's a diversion. It's a diversion to keep you, whether it's to keep you in fear or just to keep you examining something that's nonsense. But down here you have Hydra. Our ancestors marked by the standing stones the line of the solstices, right? So the spring equinox, summer solstice, autumn equinox, it was all marked here. The reason why is because 5,000 years ago, Draco was the pole star. So everything circled around Draco. Okay? Now down here in England, this is the lower realm. This is the south celestial pole. I did put a map. I can't fit the 3 maps in. This is why in the video I have Ireland zooming in, because I didn't want Ireland left out as if they do not have a central pole. They do. You will see that Draco and everything's here. Now, if you remember the map of the Isle of Man, the 3 connecting, right? So you've got this part connecting, you've got this part in Ireland connecting, and this part here, and in the middle you've got Isle of Man. This is the body of man, the head of man, the body of man, and the spirit of man. And religion, the Catholic religion, was actually created here by Rome, because they never invaded, and then they sent all the bishops out. And the word bishop is by scopus, where we get the word horoscope, and the word by is the Greek and Latin word to mean to look, to watch, the watchers. And if you look at the ancient kings of Ireland, which I claim, and Combs Beaumont and others claim this is Upper Egypt, when you look at the ancient kings of Ireland, they all claim descendancy from the Tuath Danann, who fell from the North Celestial Pole. Okay, according to what I see on the standing stones. And I'll jump quickly to some of that standing stone there is showing us, this here is Hercules, okay, standing at the top of the solstice line, right? So you've north, south, east, west, south, the south celestial pole, 3 spirals going in opposite direction, danger, disaster. That's the underworld. This is the ecliptic, and this is the upper realm. You see that they tell us on this standing stone, which is in Aberdeen, so it's the other side of this stone, they say that this is Jonah, right? Well, Jonah, Jonah is the word in Hebrew, Bar Yonah, or Aramaic. Jonah is the word, the name Peter, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah, Peter. But what this is showing is Hercules. All the standing stones, if you're familiar with my work, all the standing stones in the north of Scotland, whether you're in Forfar, whether you're in St Vigans, whether you're up in the north in Tain, Port Mahomet, Inverness, all the standing stones, Aberdeenshire, all the standing stones, including this one in Aberdeenshire, is showing you the risen Christ, Her Eccles. The earth, Hera, Cles, the earth's called out one. Down here would be Orion, the egotistic, materialistic man, and down here is Hades. The 3 twirls, the 3 dogs, Canaanite, canon law, maritime law. And up here is the ecliptic with the sun and the moon and the stars. And this would be Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, which would be Scorpio, Aquarius, Scorpio over here, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The Bible, Christianity is stolen from our lands. This stone predates Christianity. They try to say that this stone is 800, the year 800, 900, and this stone in Aberdeenshire, which is directly under the house of Cephas. And see this symbol here? This is the house of Cephas. This is the lightning bolt hitting the male and female energies, right? Red and white, hitting the male and female energies. What is that? It's the plasma coming down. And what we're seeing up here is Sagittarius. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, half man, half horse. So they tell us this is like centaurs. Well, what's all that about? Because the winter solstice always was in Sagittarius. When the lightning bolt, when Zeus fell down, the story in the mythology is Zeus goes to Capricorn and is fed the milk of Arimathea, which is the goat, Capricorn. And for thousands of years, our winter solstice has been stuck on Capricorn. But we didn't move into Capricorn until the 15th of January this year.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is that they have us, the standing stones are telling us this catastrophe. The plasma represent the Hydra, which is the ancient Babylonian Tiamat, the primordial female energy, and the Abzu, the primordial male energy. And these are the Kundalini energies that run up and down the spine, to the lower part of the spine, to the Muladhara, root chakra, to the crown. And right next to Hercules, you can't see it on here, but right next to Hercules in the heavens is the crown, the corona borealis. What is real? Bo means come, and realis, what is real? Come, that which is real. Corona, you're the sovereign one. This represents you. Orion would be here, the crucified Christ. But this predates Christianity. These stones are 4 to 10,000 years old.
Right, just another distortion, isn't it?
It's a the Bible story comes from this. This is Eve looking back on the serpent. I'm going to get to this. Is Eve looking back on her reptilian mind, right? And I've tried to show that Peter, Cheops, Khufu, when they were expelled, they built the pyramids. We know that all the standing stones in Britain and Europe are older than the pyramids by thousands of years. Stonehenge, even though it's a fake, is thousands of years older than the pyramids. The reason why is because they were expelled from the North Celestial Pole, and this here is Polaris, and this is all marked by standing stones. So the pole, everything spins in an anti-clockwise direction. Islam, they go round the Kaaba stone. This is the Kaaba stone. This is the center of heaven. And there's a big mountain up here called Benihi, which is the Ben stone in the North Celestial Pole. Benihi mountain is the Ben stone, and Ursa Minor travels round it, creating what we call the Garden of Eden. And this becomes the Garden of God, the Garden of Adam. And inside the garden, you have the snake, which is, Draco, the serpent, the great serpent who was cast out. And so the pole star, or the magnetic pole, is moving back again. And so Adam, you and I, if we understand that it's about this maritime material, serpentine, animalistic, seek and destroy, because that's the way they're driving us there. It's survival of the fittest.
It's funny. Just occurred to me then, because we've got some more friends coming up this weekend who do a lot of work on the land themselves, and it's that every time someone comes to stay at ours, either to get some treatment or do a retreat here, or sit with plant medicines, all that kind of stuff, they often stay in the Adam and Eve down the road.
Is that the name of a hotel or something?
Yeah, it's like a B&B. Everyone just like gravitates to there every time when they search up places near us. They just book it, and then they'll end up taking them to the cathedral one night. A lot of people are having like a lot of crown activations in the cathedral when they're taking them there at the moment. Really, really feeling it, which is good.
Excellent. I'm saying that the cathedrals are like a lightning bolt all down the spine.
Yeah, I've been so plugged into the cathedrals for quite some time. The geometric shapes. I've done loads of videos on my Instagram about, like, especially Lincoln Cathedral and its origin, and like its unique place on the grid. And I've done some really good videos actually from distance at the Bomber Command Center, so you can actually see it on the hill and how it would have energized all the land, but it's been nefariously taken over. And I was showing them like a football ground with loads of terrace houses all surrounding it, what I mean? It's just like, and 4G 5G towers everywhere, and how everywhere's plugged in differently, what I mean, into like different frequencies within the grid, and how it affects in the physical. And I've done a separate video where I was showing like daily life, what people are like around the cathedral and castle, and how they're so much more consciously aware. And then you go down steep hill into like High Street Lincoln, it's just like, it's that material world straight away. So it's like Lincoln's a great example of like that crown and the root from the top of the hill to the bottom.
It's astounding how they say it. It's just, Britain's very special, very very special, but the entire earth, we could probably wrap up what I'm trying to show is that Adam and Eve and the North Celestial Pole is all marked on all the standing stones of Britain. And it shows you the descent of an ancient race of people who went down into worshipping serpent energies and gods of the dead. And those cults, where they call it Akkadian, Babylonian, Sumerian, Egyptian, those cults took precedence over the true story. And religion has added to, but I'm back on the Google Earth map here, because I've only recently I've got a whole series of stuff for Ireland, because Ireland is very, very important to the whole, because it is Upper Egypt. And from Ireland, the Irish people have been deceived, but from Ireland come all the, well, not all the religions, but come the Catholic Church, which created all the religions. But the Irish gods, or the Irish Tuatha Danann, the Council of the Dawn, came from this area in Aberdeenshire. And as you can see, I have been mapping the physical health of villages and towns. The town halls match up. I've been doing this for like 12, piecing together where the actual heavens, where the actual story of what we call the Bible, the plasma, the flood or the great catastrophe, where did it actually strike? And the story is not written anywhere else apart from Britain, but every standing stone. And the scholars are hiding this. You know, I have spoke with university scholars up in the northeast of Scotland who are highly respected, and they know. I've said things that I shared, and they know. I've said things like the Picts aren't the Picts. That's, you know, the names that the Romans gave them. And, you know, they're probably Hittite. The standing stones, and some of the standing stones around Aberdeenshire have actually got Phoenician inscriptions on them. In this area, all around here, they've all got as we understand it's supposed to be connected to Aramaic and a Phoenician language, but I can read the stones, and it says in Elia Waddell's book, he's actually got it in his book, the Phoenician origins of the Britons. He actually says in the book that it's translated in 3 languages: Latin, Greek, ancient Greek, and Phoenician. And it says on the standing stones, here lies the great king, the great Brythoni king of the ancient Hittite Empire, the Scots, and the Greeks. And it actually says it on the standing stones. I can't read all that, but I can read Hebrew. I can read the word Moloch, Melech, king. Yeah. And that's something that started me. I realized, oh, wait a minute.
I've had a lot of messages privately and through the comments and that, just asking, once we finish, if you could send me like a list of books and authors. What I'll do is I'll put them in the show notes, because, you know, like as one of the girls mentioned, you know, this stuff needs to be taught at a university degree. And this is people's way of going back to their own university, I think, you know, the uni. Yeah. So if you could send us like a list of a lot of the books we mentioned tonight, and also any other doctrine, I think it's really important. I think it's really important we get out to our masses as well, because and everyone wants to connect to this. And one of my good friends, messaged me and actually said, you know, we should create a walking group and actually like walk the spine of the Albion. You know,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
it's not about walking
Definitely.
around. It's not about walking around London on a Saturday with your little nose of digital ID card protesting to NPCs who literally cannot compute what you're saying, and to which the mainstream
Yeah.
media don't publish it because the mainstream media is for the NPCs to keep them in the program, right? You know, this is like the real work, and it will create a lot of remembrance for people as well.
Oh, losing the connection. I had to shut the map down. I was losing you keep breaking up there, so I was losing the connection. So I had to shut that down. I've got so much open here. Yeah, if we're going to close off, how about we just use this as an sort of introduction, and then
Yeah, of course.
The video that I was intending using, if we're going to do another one, we'll go through it again, because the things that I put out, it takes I've been doing it for a while. I'm seasoned at it, but people come back to me and say to me, wow, so much information. I have to listen to it over and over and over again. So let's give people a chance to listen over again. And then the next time we'll start with this presentation. It's like an introduction this so far. They'll have a grasp of most of it. My ranting and my getting lost. But the next time we'll try and follow it. And I'll actually get on to showing the stories, the biblical stories in the heavens. And I'll get on to showing how this Tuath Danann, the Watchers, came down and then came down again, and those Watchers are the Roman jurisdiction, and how it all connects to the word legal, lawful jurisdiction, because we didn't even touch it. I did, you know, the thing is that I ended up in a legal battle. This is how I woke up. I ended up in a fight against the authorities for my own children, and I thought, how can the powers that are there do this? And then I realized that I had sovereignty, that the laws weren't true. And then suddenly it clicked. I thought, these are written in the heavens. They're actually using their laws in the ecliptic to keep us trapped. And then the laws of the underworld is Black's law, Black pool, the black waters, the muddy waters. And then I realized that it's actually, that is the story on the stones. So we're actually our own worst enemies because our ancestors left it on the stones. And that needs to be shown concisely.
Yes.
I did have that planned. But now, you know, I don't do many talks. You probably know, AJ, I don't do a lot of talks because I can't see too good anymore, but I'm not that good with technology. But we have actually done all right tonight. I've not had any.
Mate, honestly, you can't do everything. Right? Like you said, you know who you are, and it doesn't involve 3D shit technology. Do you know what I mean? Which, like, I've got friggin' Starlink, and you know we're jumping in and out. So, I think there's.
Do you know that Starlink? It's the Elon Musk stuff. It's all connected to Mars. But Elon Musk and Starlink. You've seen what is it? What's the film? See, I never used to be into film. Terminator film. Yeah. What's it? The Skynet.
Yeah.
Right. Part of the reason why we can't think is because Starlink have 90,000 satellites up there. Starlink have over 9. Elon Musk has, and rising. And when you go into Stellarium software, you can actually witness them flying through the sky.
I've seen them several times.
But
like a little train of stars, aren't
they? It's creating a conscious net over us. And those who have had the jibby jabs, they can't think because of the StarNet system. Because the StarNet system ties in with all the major early satellites up there. And there's one satellite called Antihelion that always follows the planets in the ecliptic. And Antihelion, Helion or Helios means sun. And sun is the Christ there. And it passes through Orion's belt. And all the Starlink systems feed into Antihelion. Data, information, everything. Orion's belt is the internet. The net that catches everything. The material, physical, carnal desires or deepest desires or lusts, or, you know, and that's, you know, but StarNet, the StarNet and Elon. Elon Musk is Elon. On is the Greek word for, is it power? Yeah, power. El is the Greek word, Hebrew word for God. So, and him and Trump, and they all play three parts in the heavens, which that's something different anyway. But yeah.
I think everyone will tune in just for that conversation.
Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein is the epicenter, the pole of heaven. Epistone, the epicenter. Ghislaine is the line. Ghislaine Maxwell, the river of life. Motherwell, river of life. Well, all's well. That's the river of life.
Is that why they're both pictured at Balmoral?
Yes, Balmoral.
The Queen's cabin.
Yeah, Balmoral is the back of the mind. Morality. Bal, the Lord's.
And this is actually, you're talking about Balmoral as the back of the head. This is why I've been showing people, like, all of these like immigrants that have been literally flown in, are opening up all these shops, all these fake sweet shops, fake grocery stores, Turkish barbers, kebab shops, vape shops. The whole thing with the skin fade is not only to make all the lads look like each other, like that's a big program in itself, but it's remove the hair, which is like your antenna, to the ether from the back of your head. So you actually lose, you're losing consciousness by having the skin fade.
We have all those stories hidden in the story of Samson and Delilah. Samson is Hercules. Samson is Hercules, the same story. Elijah is Hercules, but Elijah in the Bible is a long-haired, rough-looking man, very hairy man. He wears a leather belt and a cloak, exactly the same as Hercules. But they all have long hair, whereas Orion was trimmed. The Greek Orion was trimmed and short hair and testicles out and all that kind of stuff. Fully exposed, indecent. And then Hades is obviously even worse because the lower being, the lower thing, man. Yeah, but that is projected. This is the crazy thing. This is what I want to show. That's projected 3 times. And we're all being over British Isles, not over just the British Isles, but over the entire world. The book Anders Collins, everything's backwards. That is the most important book in my life in the last 5 years.
Starstones and Scholars.
Starstones and Scholars, Anders Collins. He tells you, I will finish, because we need to finish. I will finish by reading what he says here in page 43, which you can't see, so there's no point showing. But anyway, 43. I've actually got it on the screen in the video somewhere. Yeah, but no more. I did have it somewhere. Lost it all now. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't keep to that. It's just typical me.
I think it's important because it helps us like break things down, but also break things up, so it's not an atomic bomb of information like all at once.
Broken the ice, at least. That's for sure.
Definitely broke the ice. That's awesome.
So this Starstones and Scholars, Anders Collins. I think he just passed away recently. I'm sure he must have got the jibby jabber.
I was just checking. I was just checking on Amazon. Actually, you can get a paperback, but it's I don't think it's many of. Yeah.
Get the hardback, because I've had Bibles. I was involved with religion since I was 17, and I've had Bibles all my life, and they fall apart. And this is a Bible to me now. So this is my second one. My partner has the hardback, and this is the one that I use. But the hardback's kept special and don't touch it that often. But get the hardback because they're the same price. But this is like my Bible. This is the point I'm making. I love it. Every morning, every night, I wake up and because I started the journey finding the stones, and then I came across this work, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I discovered that, because I actually discovered the House of Cephas when I was 10-year-old over Aberdeen. I noticed that the stars made up, and the standing stones that I was visiting made up the shape of a big square. And then I thought, wait a minute, it's a big square. And then you look up in the heavens and you see the box and the pointy roof upside down most of the time. And then I realised, and that was 10-year-old. And then in my English class, Miss Montgomery, who was a fantastic teacher, and I lost my mum when I was 10, so I was going through a difficult time. And Miss Montgomery actually pulled me into life again and said to me, Stephen, use this interest you've got in the Sandstones, write a book, write something. And I didn't write a book. I wrote this 30-odd page little thing about the house of Cephas and how it was the house of Adam. And I got laughed at by most people. But then years later, in 2015, I get this book, or 2016, I think it was, I got this book. And then I thought, that's exactly what I found out when I was 10. So it kind of woke me up again, because I'd been woke up in 2013 after leaving the religious movement. But I'll read this, right? Cephas, landmarked on earth as stone sites near Aberdeen. So he doesn't just say, he's telling us it's landmarked on earth as stone sites near Aberdeen. He doesn't say it's just in Aberdeen. He said it is landmarked on earth as stone sites in Aberdeen. And this is what I discovered when I was a child. And later on, I'll show you the story of what is Adam and Eve on the stones and how that relates to our psyche and psychology and all the rest of it. I think we went through a lot of that anyway today. But so the ancient astronomers were known as Cephans, who made Cephas the father of their royal family of stars. Cephas in the ancient Sumerian temple hymns is transcribed as EC Abzu. Now, I've made hundreds of posts about this. Aberdeen Airport, the code for Aberdeen Airport is ABZ. Abzu. The valley is known as the Fertile Plain. Osiris's resting place is known as the Fertile Plain. So the Don Valley is known as the Fertile Plain. In fact, one place which has a big mound in it, which the royals erected, is called the Place of Origin in Kemnay, Kemnay. It's a mound with it's a pyramid. They built it, and the royals came and opened it, and they called it the Place of Origin. Right there, the place Kemnay means the fertile plain. And if you look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the fertile plain in the north is where Osiris's body is to be laid. And I'll show you that Haddle House in Aberdeenshire is actually the body of Osiris laid out exactly as it is in Edinburgh, in the portion of Orion. So he's killed as Orion, the middleman, and then he's killed as the risen man. And the estate of Haddle House is laid out like that. But he goes on to say that the shrine, which is the Sumerian ABZ, Aberdeen, the airport, ABZ, Abzu. Now, Abzu is also the primordial male serpent, okay? So the Abzu in Latvian is Apechu, which means the go-around, the snake who chases the pole, right? And in pharaonic Egyptian, Cephas was known as Cheops or Kofu, which means Peter. Kofu, Kepha, Peter, which is Greek. Kepha, the New Testament was written in Greek, and Peter is Kepha, Cephas. So the tip of Cephas, right? The tip of Cephas marks, so the pointy bit of the house marks the circle of the procession of the pole star. And those 7 asterisms are the 7 sages of Hinduism, the 7 circles of the Kaaba that the Muslims do in an anti-clockwise direction, the cross, which I showed you, Hercules standing on the top of the cross. You take a cross and you fold a cross in, and it's a cube, a Kaaba, the black rock. Yeah, so it's all representing the pole star. And the monotheistic religions have split up, legalism, spirituality, and practicality into the different religions. Whereas one time the Druids, the Gaels, the Brittoni, the Hittites, the Cati, whoever we were, understood the tree and understood the three realms, the upper world, the middle realm, and so on. But the religions have taken the 3 and split them: moon, sun, solar, and legal law. So he goes on to say, Cephas is the tip of Cephas marks the circle of the procession and was he says it's in capitals, capitalizing, intentionally so designed by the ancient sky surveyors. Cephas is landmarked by Neolithic sites in Aberdeenshire. The following sites form the shape of the stars of the House of Cephas. Most of these names have ancient comparable star names. Og Keg, which represents the serpent's head. Midmar, which represents Al-Firk. Midmar Kirk, Al-Firk, the star Al-Firk. Sun Honey, the star in Cephas known as Sonas. Cullery stone circle. Tyrebaga, Derab, the star Derab. Easter Aquartes, the star known as Aquartes in Cephas. So these are standing stones, which I'll show you every single one of them where they are. And another one. The standing stone at Esley represents the star Iasids in the House of Cephas. And then we have the broom end of Cricky. And the broom end is the broom of the sweeping procession, the broom of heaven, where the pole star sweeps around the House of Cephas at the feet of Cephas. Cephas is standing on the pole star because Cephas is Adam back in the garden as king, and the pole star is returning back to Cephas. The sun will rise in the House of Cephas and it will set in the House of Cephas again in God's garden, as the Bible tells us. And there will be no more need for the sun or the moon to shine ever again, because all the luminaries will return to where they should be, and the city of God, which will project from the North Celestial Pole, from the great city in the north, as the Bible tells us, down to humanity, will bring all the nations back to the great tree. And then we'll teach again what was lost, this body of man, the mind of man, the heart of man, the spirit of man.
And so, I think that probably comes in line then while we're seeing this rapid awakening happening. It's taking humanity to that point, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We're going back to what I'm trying to show here is, like, whether it's Babylonian, Akkadian, Sumerian, it all came from these lands, around that ley line, around what was projected over that ley line that spiraled round 3 times. So you've got an upper realm, a central realm, and a lower realm, and the heavens were projected and marked as a pilgrimage that people would take, and understanding that was the Kundalini energy. So they would make a way north, probably in the spring, and then on the winter you would make your way south. It would make sense because it would be warmer in the winter, and that would be a pilgrimage of recognition of self-materialism, self-sacrifice, of that there's a place where we all exit in the very north. And the Bible talks about the saints being under an altar. Well, the very north next to Hercules, there's an altar. And we don't know what's at the North Pole, but all our ancestors, all the spirits and all the beings that were before, they're there waiting, I believe. Because I don't believe in death at all. I don't believe there is death. I believe we pass from this mortal realm, but that the spirit is eternal because we are the Elohim. We are the mind of God. As it says in Genesis, Bereshit bara Elohim, with the mind we created. So we've created death. We've created this 3 realms, and we choose. Most people are choosing to stay, get a job, do this, do that. Most people are choosing to stay in that material. We could have a much better world than this. The work that you and your partner do, yourself, the positive mental attitude, the mentality, which you don't find in the world. This is the way forward. And yet they want to keep us in that, they want to keep us with the switch at the back, slave master. And it's all controlled by Aaron, Orion, Osiris, God of the living, God of the dead.
Amazing, man. Well, mate, thanks you so much for coming on today and sharing your time and your wisdom. And it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to host someone on a podcast as well that can literally sit there, deliver that kind of information the way you have, but also say outright, "I know who I am," and and that's a big deal, And we talked about positive mindset. Then if more people can sit in the I am presence with yourself, like your gifts, your understandings, your downloads, your wisdom, your knowledge, everything you're supposed to know and learn will start coming through. But as long as you sit in that positive energy of the I am presence, not from a place of lack, not from I've missed it out on this, or I'm not abundant. And like, if you keep saying I'm not abundant, like, you'll get less abundance. You know, and that doesn't mean hard cash and silver and everything else like that. It's literally like, you know, I was saying yesterday that we don't die with tabloid news and government corruption and, you know, my girlfriend cheated on me and all this kind of stuff. But you don't die with that information, right? You die with the basically the level of consciousness of the I am. You know,
I think when it's time for us to leave here, we should have, we possibly have reached that I am. That's why we leave there. Doesn't mean our life's going to be perfect when we do leave, but it's the inner mind that is the I am. The pineal is the face of God, is the throne of God. As the Jacob's ladder is the spine, and you have to raise that Christ up that ladder. And once you open that pineal, once you meet God face to face, once you know that I am, there is never, ever, ever any going back.
What's beautiful? What's beautiful that you said that is my dad has recently had a stroke, and I went down to Bournemouth, where we're from, and obviously when day one I turned up in the hospital and he didn't look well at all. Like, he was really parched. He looked really weak. He could barely say anything. But within the day of me being down there and seeing my other brothers as well, I could see how much that massively lifted him. But when I actually spoke to him, I said, like, I actually spoke to the occupational therapist, and she was showing me the part of the brain that had been affected by a stroke, and it was basically where your third eye is, where your pineal gland is, right? So I was like, interesting. So I sat next to my dad, and I said, have you had any, like, can you recall it, because you slept a lot? And I said, have you had any big dreams or anything significant? And he just went to me, I think I met God.
Awesome.
And I was like, awesome. And funny enough, I had a book, The Alchemist, with me, and you know, which is all about obviously alchemizing energy and all that kind of stuff. And I left it there in the morning, and I went back there in the evening. And when I got back there, my dad sat up in the chair, reading the Alchemist, and I was just like, he just had a stroke, and then he sat there, and he just turns around and says, you can tell he's had a stroke when he was speaking. He's like, well, this book's deep, isn't it?
It's good though, seeing it.
I was just like, what the fuck? Yeah, and it's just been a rapid increase in his development. Like, they're blown away by just how rapidly he's, you know, it's almost like they're trying to keep him in hospital because they're just like blown away. You know, it'll be out this week.
See the amazing thing that I've witnessed. The God consciousness, let's just call it, I don't know what to call it, spiritual, not awareness of who I am or who we all are. But what I've noticed, we all have our amount of children who are affected by vaccines and ADHD and the rise in Alzheimer's and other brain conditions. So, well, I've had a brain condition all my life. I've had temporal lobe epilepsy. I've got a couple of types of epilepsy, but I think that helps me. I'm very emotionally detached. I can be very emotionally detached because the temporal lobe is where the pineal gland sits as well, just behind the temporal lobe. And the temporal lobe is the part of the brain that analyzes and dissects and takes information, takes light and takes vibration and sound and works out. So what I was trying to say there is they've tried to affect our transmission in our brain over the last 50, 100 years, especially with the jabs, and especially this time round. But I think it's actually having a negative, an opposite effect, because people who are developing brain injury like epilepsy, Alzheimer's, dementia, they seem to be having God conscious moments more than ever before. People seem to, who have mental health issues, seem to talk more about that kind of stuff. So I think it's had what they've tried to do. They've tried to suppress the mind of God.
That's why they section people, aren't they? So they get them all these meds. People are having these experiences, and they're just going, "You section them, you're wacko, mate." It's just trying to tick boxes to
Yeah,
because
the
that
quickest way.
person's because
It's
they're
trying
already
to-
at that level.
Yeah. But the psychologist actually, he was a Christian. It was amazing, huh? He was a born again Christian, and I wasn't a Christian, nor was I a Jew at the time. But he was a born again Christian, and he says, "You know your Bible," and I was like, "Yeah, it's on the heavens, on the stones." And he says, "You better go. You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you." So no, but it's the mental health that we're dealing with. There's a great download happening all over. It's not just, it's everybody. Yeah, we have this opportunity now to open our minds. And when I say we have this opportunity, I mean not to chase that material world, the Epstein nonsense. It's all nonsense. Hopefully, I'll be able to show the next time that these are all in the heavens. The Epstein story, especially, even more so.
Well, let's program it for a week today, because then obviously people have got time to digest as much as information possible, and people who watch it again on replays and stuff, and then gives us a chance to build a kind of like a program in essence for the next one, and then I can put all the show notes out and all the names of the books and everything that people want, who are interested can get their heads into. But bro, thank you so much for coming on. My cue to leave is pretty much now, because I've now got a pug sitting underneath me who keeps licking like a horse and it's doing my nutting.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, where can people find you best? On Facebook?
Yeah, Facebook and YouTube. I'm trying to stay off Facebook, but yeah, I'm still on. But YouTube, I'm trying to put material up on YouTube. But it's very hard going. If we could do this is great, because this will get it out. And I've got talked to Callie and other people that I'm really trying to focus on getting as much out as I can and showing as much.
But this is a good thing that I've realised about people like yourself. I've got good friends who have got so many downloads and ancient wisdom coming through, but they're still in their job, and they've had like rapid awakenings, like all this kind of stuff. But they say when the time's right, they really want to speak about them or do podcasts and all this kind of stuff. And you're very much the same. It's good how you literally you kind of master all this information first before then going, boss, right, like, let's go on the go button. Because otherwise it could just be like just systematic and ever growing, and it couldn't. That's why there's a lot of people out there keeping people in loops at the minute, like very much in the 3D loops, like. So it's great that your gift is now here, available on the show, and giving you the platform to do it on, it's important with a following to get the information that you're sharing out there.
It's important. This information is very much. This is why when it resonates with people, because it's written inside us, every single one of us. It's written inside every one of us. I've just been fortunate enough that I went through the religious, the Hebrew, the standing stones, and now, I mean, I'm still early in the journey identifying how the heavens move and what happens. I'm having to go to a tutor to learn more specifically exactly how everything moves.
But the greatest teachers are the greatest students, though, right? And having mentors is so important. I'll forever be grateful to all the people that have mentored me and people that still do. Just like I've been literally schooled tonight on my own podcast, like, which is amazing. I've written like 5 pages of notes while you've been talking. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like I'm always in school.
And I showed her any of my presentation, so I've got lots more to do.
I'm going to steal your information, and I was going to go upstairs and like totally woo the missus with like all this new knowledge, and was like, you don't know half of what I know.
My missus, she knows just a bit. She's brilliant, actually, because it's good. You need somebody to reflect. It's the mirror, because if you don't, you devour yourself.
And not only that, we're like clearly turbo ADHD and really fucking hard to live with, probably. If we're going to take a human element of it. Bro, thank you so much, man. It's been such a pleasure, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Please, everybody, make sure you touch base with Steven on Facebook and follow his YouTube channel. Please make sure you give this podcast a share. I appreciate it's a very long one, but you can watch it in segments. I'll be putting everything in the show notes to do with the books that Steven's learned from and recommends, as well as any other doctrine or publications out there that are of interest. We're going to go for the same time next Tuesday to like do a part 2 and expand on more of what we covered today, and how it all interlinks to each other. So feel free, you can jump back on any of my feeds to watch any of these podcasts back again if there's stuff you didn't realize or doesn't make sense. And do exactly the same as we've done and continue to do, in just constantly researching, constantly understanding, and as you understand those deeper aspects of yourself, you're unlocking new things every single day, which is in line with your mission, your gifts, your connection to the land in your own subtle ways, and that's rapidly taking place right now, all over the world, and notably here in probably the most powerful land, the British Isles. So Steve, thanks, man. You're an absolute legend, mate, and thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time, guys, on Transmissions with AJ. Much love.
Thank you. Much love.